Y'all just stay standing. I'm going to ask everybody else to stand up. And, Chief, would you mind leading us in prayer now before we open our meeting?
Let's pray. Dear God, we come tonight to give thanks to you, your holy and righteous name. Thank you for all the many blessings you give us. God, we pray tonight for those who are under the COVID, oh God. We pray, oh Father, for blessings upon their lives. Father, now we ask tonight as we conduct our business for our school, we ask blessings upon our school board, upon our superintendent, upon all of our administration and teachers and students and parents. Now, Lord, we ask now tonight, oh Father, as we continue to do your will, we pray blessings upon everyone here. Now, God, we ask these blessings in the most powerful name we know. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Great. So we'll open the meeting, and Trustee Murray will lead us in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's always great when we have a full house like this. It means we've got some really good things going on in our district. So, before we get to some of the celebration of excellence, we'll have an audience of patrons, and I don't have anybody signed up. Is that right? Okay. Okay, celebration of excellence. And so before we crank it up, I just want to say thank you to whoever had anything to do with all of this. It is nice to walk in and feel appreciated. And there's cookies here that say that. There's a t-shirt here on this board. And we've all got the kids made us some things. And so, you know, all this is really fun. I love to see the kids work and just let them know that they're really appreciated, and we appreciate them doing this for us. And then I turn around and there's even more stuff back here that I didn't see. And I lost 15 pounds this year, but I'm going to have to get some of it back. But I'll just start that over. So, Grant, you want to take over the celebration of excellence?
Yes, sir. All right, keep my hands full here. All right, well, before we do hand out this mountain of certificates, because we have so many kids that have achieved such great things, I do want to take some notice. This is School Board Appreciation Month, and all month we're trying to celebrate the amazing work this board does. Last year I sat up here at a virtual meeting. I talked for forever about the good work they do. I will spare you that this time around. But I just want to ask you to give them all a round of applause. All right, so one note real quick. Because there are so many certificates, we didn't all have time to have the trustees sign them. So what's going to happen is we'll take a picture with it, give it back to me, and then we'll sign it in this meeting, and I'll distribute them out to campuses tomorrow. Make sure these kids get their awards. Okay? So we're going to start. We have one from Cherry Elementary. Ms. Penn, can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So today we are recognizing Isaac Vargas. He's one of our pre-kindergartners who has completed all of his pre-kindergarten skills in STMAT. So super excited for him. He's actually moved on to transitional kindergarten. So it's kind of an intermediary between pre-K and kindergarten, but super excited for the hard work that he's doing. Oh, and he's not here.
Yeah, he's right here. I just wanted to picture this. And it's all right, come down. Picture time. All right. Okay, all ready? All righty. 3, 2, 1. Good luck. Perfect. Thank you all. We have Leon Stacy. Ms. Wendell, can you tell us a little bit about what these kids have done here?
Yes, so I'm very excited to be able to bring quite a few students. I know that they work super hard, but what we're going to celebrate today is the first semester. We have about 12 students that completed challenges 1 through 24 for Reading Amplified, meaning they have completed their whole first grade, and then we have a couple from second grade that have done the same. Then we're also going to celebrate our ST Math students, and so we use these curriculums as supports in the classroom, but they can also work on it at home. And it was amazing over Thanksgiving break to see how many hundreds of puzzles were solved when we weren't even in school. So I'm very excited to celebrate these students because they have gone above and beyond, and I thank their teachers that have come too to celebrate their babies. So first we have Calvert. Next, we have Daniel Chavez. Joshua Whitman. Next, set reminders. William Johnston. We have Alexander Mata.
Congratulations, Xander.
Then we have Joanne Gibson. Joanne Sanders. Then we have Dixon Green. We have Mr. Russell Aaron. And Blake Calais. And Grayson Aguilar, and Grayson actually won for ST Math and Reading Amplified, so super excited. Liliana Vega. Christian Torres. Mr. Jonathan Wyatt Penix. All right, and I know Mr. Michael Onwachek couldn't make it tonight, but we want to celebrate his name. We have Mr. Iker Rodriguez. Ms. Bria Elliott. Noah Zaboral. And our last one is Grayson Aguilar.
Y'all take a picture, okay? We're gonna go wide here. All right.
Are you getting all of it?
Yeah, I'm trying. Yes. I'm calling.
Blake.
Make sure you're not blocking. First, and then you also say, let's scoot this way a little bit. Perfect, we got you all. All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1. Great job.
Imagine you're all together. Together again.
All right, no, we're going to keep moving. So now we have from Mason High School, Ms. Reyes can help us out here. It's leading the TSI, Ms. Reyes.
Before we call the kids in, I would like for Principal Cummings to come with me and present their words. Also, Mr. Button, Mrs. Baker, and Mrs. Lillian Lopez. And I will explain why. I am especially honored to be here today recognizing these kids because when they were in 8th grade, we took the chance to say, why not? Let's go try and see how much these kids know and how, that was the beginning of early college. So Mrs. Cummings, I called her and asked her, she was up to this idea and she welcomed us all and said, you just come, what do you need? Do you need computers? Do you need facilities? What do you need? And it has been like this for the last 3 years, and this was the first generation. So they opened the doors for us to go test. Ms. Lopez takes the time to go test them, coordinates for the junior high. So this happened when they were in 8th grade. So we have them college ready, TSI ready as 8th graders. And when we are reviewing our goals, Mr. Button and Mrs. Baker say, okay, well, they are college ready for English, they're ready for math, and here they are. So they are sophomores at Bay City High School, and they are college ready. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that there's a lot of students in college that have not met this milestone, so I'm extremely proud of them. So our first one is going to be Lina Gilbert. Sydney Hutchins. Jair Amestica. Alyssa Castro. Alyssa Kendall Clayton. Rafael Lara. Hannah Quan- and Idol. Michael Mata. And by the way, I told little Mata brother Peter, so I can't wait for him to be college ready. Juan Martinez. Emily Sierra Lopez. Isabel Villalobos. I'm going to ask Principal Cummings, Ms. Lopez, Mr. Button, Ms. Baker, if they can please take a picture with us, ladies and gentlemen, because they were truly invested in the success. And for the community, when you read the newspaper, you will have lots of athletes in there too. So they really take the time to get ready for TSI, get ready to go to college, and they are working so hard in the field as well for Mr. Plowman.
All right, welcome to student. All right. 3, 2, 1. Great job, everyone.
I'll be back to you.
Don't worry about it. Talk about it, introduce the presentation, celebration. Awesome, thanks so much. Yes, sir.
Just want to say that's, you know, I won't speak for everybody, but I'm sure the sentiment is echoed, but that's our favorite part of almost every meeting. And how special was that to get to see our elementary kids here? And normally we see our high schoolers are doing so much to get ready for college and they're excelling in all their sports, but to see the very youngest pre-K students here celebrating their excellence was awesome. So thank you guys for that very much. Okay, items of business. A, presentation and discussion of the facility assessment for Pierce O. Lenny Roberts Junior High Stadium by Latham and Associates. Our presenter is Francis Zordin. Francis, how are you doing tonight?
Good.
Good to see you again. Yes, sir.
I hope you had a chance to look at the facility assessment I sent last week. But we'll jump right into it. Starting off with the Pierce School Boys and Girls Club. That facility is still owned by the district and is being rented out to the Boys and Girls Club. Facility is 1950s building with additions 1960, 1983, and then covered play for 2015. If you've got the file open, if you can turn to a page that looks like this. This is pretty much the summation of our review of the entire campus, and everything right now turns out to be poor and very inadequate for a school building if you were to run it back into a school. There's a bunch of upgrades and changes that need to be made to that facility, which I think would be more than what a new school would cost, or very close to what a new school would cost. That the last page on the recommendations as well is you'll see a bunch of pictures, and I try to find some good, and there's not a lot of good, so there's a lot of inadequacies and things that need to be done to it. The big piece would be the roof system. Being in 1960s, this is a wood frame structure with a wood frame deck, or wood roof deck, with some roofing issues that have been covered over with a foam roof, and that foam roof is now failing, or has failed, and starting to leak, penetrating through that foam, through the covering underneath the foam, and onto the deck, and really weakening the deck system itself to a point where some of it is starting to collapse outside on the canopy sections as well as inside the classroom areas. There are 2 wings that are being currently used as teaching facilities for the Boys and Girls Club. Another wing is, I believe, being rented out to the city, and then the final wing is either being rented out through, I guess, an MMA entity, and then the rest of those rooms on that wing are used as storage. But again, my final recommendation on the Pierce building, if I can just read it to you. Boys and Girls Club, Pierce School is beyond its useful lifespan, being 1950s. Typical school buildings really last about 50 years before district should consider getting rid of it. I think the district has done its best to maintain that facility. As especially being rented out or being serviced by the Boys and Girls Club. There are materials there that are either no longer existent they can get or very difficult to find as far as replacement skills. And again, my assessment is really just through the naked eye. So there are probably things in walls and underneath the floor slab as far as even other ceilings that I could not see. That probably into some upgrades. But my final recommendation is either sell it or donate it to the Boys and Girls Club as is conditioned, or demolish the building. Any questions on this?
Pretty much assume that's what you were going to say on that.
Lenny Roberts, again, is no longer being used as a classroom. It's not as bad off as the Pierce School. I think the one good thing that is there is the terrazzo floor system, because that's pretty much probably the most durable material there is on that campus. The roof system as well, and this is a 1961 facility with an addition, a classroom addition in 2000, as well as the play gym area. You've got an HVAC system that cannot keep up with the environment around Bay City. It's a two-pipe system, and if you call for cooling and it's on a hot day, then that's fine. But if any of those spaces need heat, you really can't do that, especially if one room needs heat. Just because it's a two-pipe system, there's one pipe that flows the water in to either cool or heat, and one pipe that flows back to the cooling tower as a return. So if one room calls for heat, then it's going to take a while for that system to bring in some hot water. But then once you do that, then all the rooms get heat as well. On the sheet that I have previously showed you for Pierce, those pretty much resulted in poor conditions. And again, let me backtrack on Pierce. On Pierce, I've looked at the facility, so I wanted my project manager, Christine Walker, to look at it as well. I evaluated myself and then let her evaluate that facility, and they are in line with what I saw. Similar to the Lenny Roberts, again, we turned out to be poor. This is my assessment of it. And again, there's going to be a whole bunch of upgrades and needs that would be far costly to keep running as a school facility. My final assessment on that one also is to either donate it to an entity, or if you want to keep the land, but demo that facility as well. I think the list of repairs and upgrades are going to be much more costly than providing a new facility.
Were there foundation issues with the wing that's Lenny Roberts?
There are foundation issues, so that is a slab system, and I don't know if you saw some of the photos, but you've got a VCT tile covering on the classrooms, and those are pretty much close to the exterior. So the exterior side, the side is very flat, and from the majority of what I saw is the slope of the grades are flowing back to the building, which means that the water is getting underneath and then working its way up through the slab as vapors. So all those markings on the VCT is really the glue that's re-emulsifying and then working its way back up through the seams and staining that tile. So that's going to be hard to continue to maintain throughout the year. And really no amount of wax will have that from occurring.
Francis, that's a pretty, I guess it's a historical building, and important to the community.
Sure.
What's your assessment on potentially leaving, is it viable to leave a wing where there isn't any foundation issues? Would the HVAC units be able to keep up with half or a third of the structures if the rest of them were? I mean, is that an option? No, or even?
Well, looking at the system, that system is at its lifespan as well. It's very similar to what you've got at the junior high. I believe that the HVAC system that is servicing the auditorium, that's roughly about 20 to 25 years, and most HVAC systems, that's the lifespan of them. And so, if you're going to do anything as far as the HVAC system, that would require complete replacement.
So even if we gave it away, what do you think it would take for somebody else to spend to be able to get that building?
Well, I mean, it really depends on what they want to do and how they want to use it. If they want to use it for a teaching facility, then you know, you could put anything on it. But again, with the roof system being bad, also it's causing so many. Now the HVAC system again is not keeping up. You've got single pane windows on the exterior, so it doesn't have a whole bunch of insulation zones. And so when you turn off the system completely, it's going to create a whole bunch of humidity, and then when you turn the system back on, then it starts to condensate. So that condensation you can see at the windows, you can see probably about within 5 feet from those windows, because if you notice some of those pictures, it had some water in light fixture ledges that was accumulated. And so it would take a while for that system to really fully kick in for it to condition the air.
You want to take a recess? We can take a 10-minute recess. We're just going to recess the meeting for 10 minutes.
Okay.
So we can let Dr. Scott tell me whatever's going on. Okay. Well, we'll fill you in. Go ahead.
Okay, go.
Yep.
Any other questions on later on?
Okay, you said that the foundation is the foundation, I didn't hear exactly what you said about the foundation.
So I guess, and I don't know, back in the 1960s, when the slab was poured, if there was any kind of sealer that was installed on the slab, but again, over time, that sealer is going to wear away. And so concrete is a porous material, and it also shrinks and cracks. So wherever the water from underneath the building can get through, it will find its way through. And for the most part, those classrooms on the exterior side are experiencing a whole bunch of wide vapor smoke.
This assessment that you performed, I guess is more detailed than the assessment that was done maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know if it was your company, but at that time, their only concern was out there in the primary room, and that it was only one room, if I can remember right. It was only one room that they had issues with, even more. So now, and I have to tell you, I'm very sentimental when it comes to Lynn Rock.
Sure.
It is a historical building, and I'm sitting here doing my math. 1961, I entered that building as a second grader. So It means a whole lot to my area of the community. So, demolishing it, as far as I'm concerned, will never be an option. But, he did ask a question, what would it take for someone else to do that? I'm still kind of bored about all of these other issues that was never brought to pass before. Now, it may have, and I may have missed the meeting that all of that was discussed, but, donating it to the community, I think, will be worth more than I can echo or anyone else. So, I will stand on that one. The roof, I understand, because I pass by it daily. I watch it, I sit in that yard because it hurts my heart. That is no longer little kids or anything running through that. So to destroy it, in my thing, will never be an option. But I will look for options as far as donating. We donated Bay City Junior High. We donated Hilliard High. We donated all of those buildings to the community. So, I appreciate you doing it in depth. I think that this gives me some more information. When people ask about what we're gonna do, I can show them and tell them your assessment. I did look at it. I probably looked at it more than I did Pierce, because Pierce is a much older building and it's been there forever and always. I appreciate you. I just wanted to ask about the foundation. You did explain that once that system is off, well, that's with anything, it sets up moisture and yes, you see all of that. But, it's been out of service now for what, maybe 6-7 months, whenever Lenny Roberts moved out. And if it was a complaint, help me, Ms. Widow, if it was ever a complaint about all of these issues, I don't think I ever heard those complaints or anything. So that's where I am with this building. And I know my community is speaking really loud about it, and we are looking into options of maybe it being donated. So, but I do appreciate everything.
And I think, you know, the question is, what would it take? It really is the shell of the building that you would get rid of all the windows, because again, it seems glass. You replace all that glass with insulated glazing. Now, you probably have to get the interior, keep the brick on the exterior, get the exterior side of the wall, and then re-insulate that. So for the most part, I believe you would be keeping probably about 80%, keeping 20% of what's there, and then replacing 80% of everything.
I have a question. You said there was, and in some of the pictures I saw the moisture. Did you see any mold issues inside already?
They were old spots, so
Okay.
yes, there was some old growth.
It's an old, okay.
I know when we were doing the project for Lynn Roberts, and we had to make that decision between, you know, existing site and tying onto a wing versus the new site where it is. A lot of these issues he's talking about were discussed in some of those meetings. And I think it was right before you got on, but mold was a big one. We had mold. We had a professional company come in and do lots of air quality tests throughout it. The foundation was a big issue. I think termites even might have been an issue at some point with the site. So
Now, in that new wing, there was some termite damage. I don't know if you walked that individual classroom, the one that was added in 2000. So there's a joint, control joint, right about the center of that building, and that was where the termites were coming in. It was their pathway and eating into one or two of the closets on that scene.
the roof and the OAC, but I'm willing to explore whatever options you're talking about. And if, you know, from the district standpoint, if the district can use the building in some way that would benefit the community, without it costing the district, right, then I think that that's a win-win. If the community wants to grab hold of the building and do something special with it. But there's a lot of expenses there, so, going into that, I think we really just need to talk about all the options. My first instinct is not to tear it down. It's newer than, the other ones we're talking about, so. But, he's a professional hire, and he just comes in and just gives us the opinions of a professional who doesn't live here, right? So if the building is what it is, this is my recommendation, so we can take it or leave it.
Like I said, I appreciate you coming in and sharing that information, so now, going forward, when someone asks me, I can tell them more of what you saw there when you did your assessment. So I appreciate you coming in, thank you.
So a complete replacement of that, just a U-shaped building of the 1961 building. It's roughly 24,000 square feet, and again, it's just a complete replacement, brand new. It will run about 8.4 million in today's dollars. So if you're going to do anything with it, and if you got to replace 80%, to fix that facility, yeah, it would be 6.7 million.
Let me ask this question, James, and I don't know if you all were on the board before. When the Boys and Girls Club came into existence, how much did the school district help out in that financial? In the building? Do you know?
I don't know the answer.
I don't.
I know it's in bad condition.
No.
Okay, Rick, I'm sorry.
No, the school district, improvements they made at Pierce campus was made by Boys and Girls Club. School district, what we did was maintain outside, we don't do that anymore, but at the very beginning, it was just like, the grounds and things like that. But the Boys and Girls Club, if I remember correctly, we did not contribute anything to their, when they took over the campus. They got it as is at the time. And then they remodeled that one middle wing in new air conditioning, redid the whole thing. But we haven't spent any money, in that regard since they started.
Okay, and I appreciate you too, Rick, about maintaining the outside, because I really was worried about that at one point. So thank you, it's been maintained,
It's
and that's a good thing.
maintenance department, but yeah.
Yeah.
But they did a good job.
Oh, thank you.
Any other
And the same thing with Hill?
But Hilliard, we mowed Hilliard. Okay, that organization takes care of the total property there.
Okay.
It's upbringing, I think, there.
Okay.
Moved from the church. But they maintain the total facility there.
Okay.
People have done it for the
Any other questions? Moving on to the junior high school stadium. This one is 1949 with an addition of the field house in 1960. That's the homeside field house. That's the L-shaped metal building. 1990s weight room addition. That's that leg of the L-shaped of the field house. And 1998 it was the concession stand addition. This one is very old as well. It was not meant to have any kind of plumbing or enclosed spaces underneath the grandstands. You can tell by the restroom facilities and how that was laid out and how the plumbing was laid out. So that was just a basic add-on to what you all needed. There are a bunch of safety concerns within the stadium. I do recall even on a previous project in a different school district, the age of these concrete structures. As soon as they touched it with a bulldozer, it pretty much pulverized and kind of disintegrated. And so that is my concern with this one. I I know in the previous CASA facilities assessment, they mentioned some beams for added support underneath the grandstands. Those are still there, so their concern was structural. And that's my concern as well. If you got that support underneath the grandstands, that's not a good thing. There's a bunch of moisture issues as well underneath the grandstand spaces. Even the storage facilities, you've got a lot of mold growth in those spaces as well. The site on this one also is fairly flat. The field drainage system is totally clogged. And I don't know if you remember, but when we were renovating the junior high facility, apparently the pipes where there used to be city streets that is now being used as a parking lot were totally clogged. So I suspect the drainage system for the field is in the same condition because, again, I could barely see the grates where the inlet drains go. It's all covered with and filled with dirt and grass. So if you want that facility to work properly, then you would have to replace that entire drainage system as well. And then hopefully the city will continue to clean their lines because we got some issues on the city side as well with the storm drainage. I do believe I did include some of the facilities pictures where after a rain event there was some ponding water in the field and it took some time to either evaporate or work its way through whatever the system is left. Now on the visitor side, field house, that to me is a hazard waiting to happen. There's too much movement within that building. You can tell by the displaced concrete masonry units on the exterior and the cracking in the ground joint. So, one other event could create something bad for the district. The roof systems are in poor shape, especially in that visitors field house. It has created some damage. That is also a spray foam insulated roof. It has now undulated extensively. Typically, I see that fairly flat, but with those undulations, it leads me to believe that water has seeped through the insulation system and has created, as the sun hits the roof and heats up that water, it'll push and evaporate that water and push that system up. So it's already dislodged from any sensor under the foam insulation. Metal building wise, on the home side, that's just an old building. The system used to work as a cross ventilation. Some of those spaces have been closed off to try and put some AC in there. But again, that's kind of a catch-22. You allow other spaces to be naturally ventilated while you're AC-ing, and then you're introducing moisture into the facility and trying to cool it that way and then creating condensation. But for the most part, I think on the final recommendation for that facility, that again is going to require quite a bit of upgrades to keep that in good working condition. My recommendation is to demo those buildings and demo the grandstands and provide new as far as if you're going to use that as a competitive field, provide new restroom facilities, concession stands, and then the drainage.
Did we talk about this once before, that it was a hazard?
Yeah.
And maybe just closing it? Did I I did see people walking, and that, I'm always leery about that because we're still responsible. So if something happens to someone while they're walking there, I mean, it's on us. We all know how old that one is, and we see how run down it is. So I agree with you that that needs to be, and it needs to be totally closed out from anyone walking or whatever on that, gravel that should not be happening.
Yeah, there's a number of safety issues within the grandstands, especially if the district has attempted to allow persons with disabilities and wheelchairs access to it. Well, there's on the guardrails up in the front, you've got, I guess, a bar close to the bottom along the ramp, and then with this protrusion that you created for the seating area. But along that concourse, there is no bar there, so if anybody, wheelchair kind of slips, they can hurt themselves, push that wheelchair through. So there are no railings in the middle of the aisle, so no kind of support to hold on to as you're walking up and down those aisles. And those aisles are pretty narrow. They don't meet the current fire codes required. You need 48 inches between seats. I believe you only got like 24 inches, so it would be very difficult for both the seating areas to come into and evacuate that stadium.
The field and the track is not the hazard, it's the stands.
Right.
The stands were closed off to everybody, and the kids would still be able to participate on the field, as long as nobody's going up down the stands.
Sure.
But I've seen people run the stands for exercise, and I think that needs to stop.
And I'll also see parents walking and have their kids.
So
Stands need to close.
I have a question, and maybe it's for the junior high. I know the boys' athletic department uses the L shape. I don't know when it was built, but is there, if we were to say, it sounds like this building is over, it is not safe anymore. Is there room inside? Was the intention when the building was built for them to eventually be inside? Is there a dressing room for them? What is the situation?
Not for athletics.
Not for okay.
We do still use the locker rooms on the old north gym.
Okay.
They're a little rough as well, but athletics definitely uses the field house. So that's something we definitely need to use, because if we can't use that field house, the only weight room I have is the new weight room that's next to the auditorium, or right underneath the auditorium.
And that field house is part of the L shape, or where is it?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
The visitor field house, we do
Yes.
not use that one at all,
okay.
but the main one we do.
And I know, I've seen them running the stands
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Every morning. Made that note just now.
Yeah. But there is another weight room on campus. It would just have to be creative in how we, okay.
Now the track, again, it's got some hazards too, because there's the system on top of it is already delaminating from the substrate, so you would need to replace the tracks finished.
Do you have any idea what replacing that track?
The track will probably run $400,000, and again, it really depends on the system that you want. If it's a pretty basic, you can probably get away with that, but if it's more for competition, then you spend a little bit more.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So what is the next step in this? And Dr. Scott, I know you weren't in here, but I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any different thoughts than what his recommendations are from his report. Yeah, do you have any other recommendations besides what he has? Okay.
tear them down.
Demo piers or donate piers, okay, as is.
So that part I heard, you talk about donating, I was gonna come in and remind the board about Alien time, is that you can't give public property.
Right.
So this idea of donating a building to someone, you're gonna donate that at a cost, you cannot give away the building. So that's one thing I can actually tell you. I've said from the beginning, since I've been here, probably since the time that the school closed, we probably spent close to $2 million on empty buildings. So if you're gonna be fiscally responsible, then I would go with the recommendation that Francis and his company made. If you want to sell the building, because once again, you can't give public property.
You might check though too, in some of these school districts get land donated to build a school on. And so if it's no longer used as a school, it reverts back to whoever donated.
So that's
That is
definitely here on what we could possibly, and I don't know, like, you all have to talk to our attorneys about that. But I know from the standpoint of gifting the buildings, I've always been told that you can't actually do that. And even in the process here, the other people that are involved within the school, you couldn't get that as well, so.
It was just devalued because of the work that needed to be done.
Yes.
And something could be structured similarly for Lenny Roberts, but do we have to go out to bid potentially?
You have to get it appraised. First, yes. And then you have to send it out to bid, and depending on, again, this is a legal piece, I'm not an attorney, but depending on what the organization you consider, kind of going into an agreement with, depending on what they want to do with it, and then the benefit that whatever that business, organization, or product, or what have you may be to the district, then you can consider that as a part of the negotiating piece, which is to hand the building over to someone for their personal use, or something that's not going to necessarily give back to the district by what the lawyers would consider, then I know you won't be able to do that.
I know that our maintenance director is new, but we just didn't get a chance to walk part of this evaluation. Does he have any comments or anything you'd like to make about it?
For y'all that don't know me, I'm Scott Savage. I'm the new director of facilities and maintenance. I was able to walk the old Lenny Roberts last week, but I have not seen the Pierce building inside. So I just have my views of the old Lenny Roberts so far.
Your views of Lenny Roberts pretty much match up with Mr. Francis?
Yes, I know the district has been renting, I guess, the gym and cafeteria. What I saw last week, the HVAC system, all the copper was removed. So there's no HVAC in the cafeteria at all, heat or cool. HVAC is running 24/7 in the rest of the facility. All the communications equipment was removed, so there's no way for my department to monitor it without actually going to the school, turning it on and off on a daily basis. So currently it's running 24/7.
Whenever you say it was removed intentionally?
Yes, it
He
looks
did
like
that,
the,
or it got stolen?
supposedly it was all removed. All the IT equipment that controlled all the HVAC stuff was just wires hanging, from what I've seen.
And the copper?
Copper was stolen. All the exterior copper off the unit.
That is one building, I don't know what we want with that, so I'm gonna put my 2 cents in. That is one building, as far as I know, there was maybe 2 break-ins to that building. And, we have preserved that building. So to say, or to even insinuate that this is happening, I think that I, for one, would be more mindful. And, I just don't like the way that conversation went. But, thank you for that, and I'm glad that you did get a chance to walk it. When I have time and you have time, I'm sorry, the name?
Scott Savage.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And for you to tell me what's what, that's just what I would like to do. I'm not speaking for anyone else on the board.
Yes, ma'am, I'd love to.
That's something I would like to do, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And just get with Dr. Scott on that.
What do you do?
Dr. Walker, correct.
Okay.
So I think, let me just jump in for all of us, here in the room at this table. We pay someone to do an assessment, of this building, of all these facilities, and that's their job. It's up to the board to decide whether or not they want to follow those. You all can visit, any of the churches can visit any of the buildings that you want to. But mind you, he didn't do this for free. He has no skin in his game. We paid him to do that. So take his recommendation for what they are. Don't take them. But for me to personally, again, which is why I kind of voiced the question, that's not my line of work. So I couldn't walk the building with you and tell you whether or not it's going to be good or not.
And I know that we paid you for your services, and I appreciate that, and I was not challenging what you were saying. I was just letting you know how I felt about it. So it's definitely, and I will get with Dr. Scott and let him know and see if it's okay, get his permission to do that, and I appreciate Dr. Scott saying that we can do that at any time, but I'm always mindful of the people that's in charge, and I will go and follow procedure. Thank you.
And just a quick point of order, so this is a closed meeting, it's an open meeting, but the business is closed, and so let's try to keep the conversation amongst the board, and it's not, what you call a public forum or anything, so just, try to be a little bit mindful about engaging the public without allowing the whole public to respond. It's a discussion here with our presenters. All right, any other questions, comments about item B? I should say item A, still on A.
I know this is a presentation, so where are we going from here?
Right, so we can put it on a future agenda item to take action. Yep. And so you can state your support for tearing it down or not tearing it down,
Right.
but we're not gonna vote on
Right.
it or anything, and so, yeah, the discussion part of that. But we will put it on a future agenda item once, well, I guess a little bit more is done behind the scenes and make those decisions.
What else needs to be done at this point?
Yeah, attorneys probably need to be talked to, along the lines of giving something back on the Pierce property, or what we can do with the Roberts property as far as selling it, or however that works.
So can we get that?
Cost of doing these things, right?
The question for me is, what is the board's guidance for the administration? Because a lot of things you're talking about are within the responsibilities of the superintendent and administration. What do you all want us to do moving forward? I know I have to go and walk the building with trustee Roberts. That was understood. What else?
I think we've been presented with all these facts about these buildings that are old, and you've already reiterated. So we spent millions of dollars keeping old facilities, and so we should proceed with the recommendations as presented.
And one way or the other, you can make this.
Yeah, I mean, it's either, it's gifted to somebody and it's out of the district's hands and they take over the maintenance and everything, but we as a district have plenty to spend money on other than old buildings and falling down stadiums.
And we did say we're gonna table this and talk about it in the future.
So we're not tabling it, but this is the presentation, it's not an action
No, we
item.
are.
Yeah, we can't do anything. We're gonna give Dr. Scott some instructions on how to proceed from here,
Okay.
and I think it's explore giving Pierce back to the family, versus demolition. And then explore Lenny Roberts, and can we give it away? The answer is no, probably. Can we put it up for bid and get an appraisal on it, sell it, and how all that works?
So just explore the legal ramifications.
Yep. Yep.
Whatever we decide.
And the junior high stadium, I don't think I heard anybody disagree that those stands need to come down. So what is the cost of that?
All right, so we're considering, for Robert, we're considering gifting a building, what else we consider?
Selling the building.
Selling it. What else we consider?
I mean, the third option would be a demolition, which is his recommendation, and just because you're gonna consider it doesn't mean we're gonna do it, but.
Any solution basically to get those properties on.
You basically would sell it, give it, or demo it.
Okay, so with the expectation or the possibility of giving it away or selling it, that's going to cost us an appraisal. That's on the thing.
Just to see what are.
I don't know if that needs to be done for Pierce. Because Pierce were already in discussions of Boys and Girls Club moving out of that building. So-
Anything for Pierce.
I think Pierce just,
Donate back to the get back to the
well, I think it's gonna have to be, demoed. What's the demolition cost on it? And then, I don't know who we would contact from the family. Maybe that's something that,
We need to have a conversation with them.
right, but I don't know who we would contact. I don't know if it's,
And then for the junior high stadium, I think there probably needs to be more discussion with the junior high because the athletics is using it. So how clearly the stands need to go, but probably some option potentially is for part of the field house, something like that, I don't know.
Okay, so the stands go, definitely.
yeah, I think
You
that's.
haven't voted on it, that's the recommendation. Consensus before. Yep. Any discussion on the track?
We did talk about the track very small, very briefly. He said it's maybe 400 or something, somewhere around 400.
Yes.
I don't think that was necessarily the one. I think that
Well,
was like
that's what
we
he
used to do.
Yeah. It looks similar.
Okay, my only question about the track, and being the most critical piece, I see hundreds, I mean, 50 to hundreds of folks walking out there in the afternoon, so I know that's the community piece, as well, for you. It's just for consideration for the board.
Anything else? Okay, item B, discussion and consideration of project delivery method for the construction of the junior high school auditorium re-roof and the Teeny Homes third grade classroom demolition and replacement. Francis, you're up again.
Okay. And I want to thank you for the relationship and trusting me and my company, Pelican, to continue to work for the school district. So, but I do understand, not necessarily you want to, not want to continue doing construction management, but if that's the case, you just want to go with a different company. So, I just want to give you some options. Again, when we start a facility and move into design and construction documents, we would like to have a contractor present to help us with the budget numbers and establish those, make sure we do the most accurate cost that would affect the school district. We did work with several construction manager risk companies to do those estimates that hopefully help Mr. Wilson as far as when we present what you all can do. But to go through these, and I don't know if you've got a copy on your tablets. There's 5 methods. One is design build. Design build will probably cost the most for the district, and you know, it's it's good in some respects, but bad in most. Possibly the reroute can be a design build option, but as far as the classroom addition on the third grade learning for the new teen home, I recommend to go to different routes of design build. And if you can see, pretty much these items, it really doesn't allow for an architect to be involved. It's really just the contractor and the school district and then his subs that would be involved in that. So you ask that contractor what you want to do. They'll draw it up and then design it for you, give you a price, and then you just say yes or no on there. Again, there's no checks and balances, so without an architect, there's no oversight between the contractor themselves, and then reading any information that the district needs to look out for during that process. Construction manager risk, if you decide to go with a different company, we're going to have to issue out another RFQ, request for qualifications, to solicit construction manager at risk companies, and then interview them, and then have you guys select again once that does. This method is probably about 95% of what we see in the projects that we do. Again, it offers the district probably the most bang for the buck, as we say, because not to commend Weaver and Jacobs, but they were actually acting as your construction manager risk, but also your maintenance as you guys are transitioning to maintenance folks. So that they did, again, lately they kind of faltered on some of the finishes that they needed to complete on the many waters, but throughout the whole process, a construction manager will help you with your maintenance as the project continues forward. This allows you, again, when they issue a GMP, guaranteed maximum price, they do not go over that number. If they do go over that number, then the risk is on them, unless the district says, I want to add such and such. So any change in scope is, that's the district that initiated, then that's when we do any change in scope that is already on the drawings, then that is covered by the construction manager at risk company. Construction manager agent is very similar to construction manager. So again, if you see this little diagram between construction manager, it's pretty much a construction manager. It's pretty much a three-legged stool. So you've got owner, architect, contractor working together, and then the contractor actually, or the construction manager actually is in control of all the contracts with the subs. But with construction manager agent, it is still owner, architect, and construction manager, but now the risk or portion of that is pretty much all the district. They hold the contracts with the subcontractors. So the construction manager actually only advocates for the district if the subcontractors are faltering. And sometimes if one of the subs falters and can't do the work, then it's up to the district to decide whether to go to the next subcontractor and pay an increase on what it would take to do that. Again, with the construction manager, anything that happens there, then the contractor is responsible for picking up any increases. And there was really only one company that I know that runs a construction manager agent like construction manager risk. She decided in that method I produced that company. Agent, construction manager risk is not professional services to the district, but construction manager agent is. The district is allowed to hire them like you would or architect without any company bidding is very much like a competitive sealed proposal. Competitive bidding is pretty much going by the wayside. Not too many projects are going through competitive bidding. The negative on the competitive bidding is it's no longer best value for the districts, but it's actually lowest price. So any district come in and do a competitive bid, you can't select. If contractor A says it's worth $10,000, contractor B says the work that they're gonna do for the same thing is $20,000, and the $10,000 actually is lowest price. So, and then you decide what quality occurs through the construction process. Now, competitive sealed proposal, very similar, but you get the option to choose contractor A versus contractor B before a GMP is set on those projects. I know that is it in a nutshell, but do you have any questions on any of the methods?
Competitive sealed proposal is not a method, it's just we select CMAR and then do a competitive sealed bid with it.
That the competitive proposal is sending out the drawings out to everybody.
Okay.
And so there will be contractors, general contractors that will contract with the subcontractors, and those contractors will actually submit their bids to you all. But again,
So you're going to see maximum price on those.
at the end, so once you're comfortable with what, you'll get to see everything. On a competitive bidding, you don't get to see until bid day, and then again, it's lowest price. But with competitive sealed proposals, all the bids will be opened up, and then they'll be tabulated, and then you can select which contractors you actually want to work on the project. And that is best value. That is best value for the district.
We use the CMAR method for all of everything that we've been
Same
doing.
risk, yes, on the last bottom initiative. I don't recall what was done on 2000 projects. Questions? Thoughts?
You need to know tonight from us how to proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys need to make a decision so that at least we get that out of the way. And then again, we're still in conversation with the district as far as, I know Lewis Wilkes presented a 6, 8, and a 14 classroom edition about a week and a half ago. I heard 12 classroom edition with pull-out spaces. So we're still ironing out the program requirements. Once we get the program requirements, then we'll start the design process on public recreation.
Yeah. I think there's a reason that 95% of the districts are using CMAR construction manager at risk, and it's, you know what your guaranteed maximum price is.
Most districts usually have like a construction consultant that watches over the project too, that is kind of go between the CMR and the school district, correct? I mean, not have that. Right.
I don't know.
You're talking program manager. There are some districts that do that, but those are really the bigger schools with a whole bunch more projects that the districts like, your facilities director can't really oversee because he's got another job. But with a re-roof and a classroom renovation, you don't want to spend the money. I think you'd save a lot more money hiring somebody as a district employee than to pay a program manager.
So with the CMAR method, we select our architect, say it's you, and you draw it up, and then we select a construction company. It doesn't have to be the one we've always used.
Right.
They'll give us a guaranteed maximum price. If we don't like it, we can go get a bid from somebody else as well, or how does that work? And bidding process on it in the CMAR.
As soon as you select, the CMAR, then they're pretty much, soliciting, during even the design, soliciting numbers, so that you get accurate numbers. It doesn't have to be the one that's awarded the contract, the subcontractor that's awarded the contract. It doesn't have to be the one that gave the numbers. They're just getting from that company, so that they don't evaporate all the other ones that they're gonna go, ask to put bids in. But again, you'll have, several different companies, bidding on whatever it's drywall or metal stucco or steel. But as far as shopping around, once you do construction manager or estimate, there's no need for you to shop the district to shop around. It's the construction manager that shop around.
So, quick thought, and I don't know if this is part of this discussion, the number of classrooms, where we land on that. I've walked the building, I have the blueprint of it with it laid out. I know it is tight right now, but where we are financially, what we're looking ahead to need, would it be a conversation that would be worthwhile to have a conversation of let's just demo the third grade wing at this moment and put a pause button on it and see where we go with our enrollment. I know there are more developments, but one of the developments is Van Vleck ISD, and the other one hasn't done anything with what they just purchased. So are we possibly the cart before the horse? And do we need to demo because it's an issue? And then number two, can we sit where we are with what we have and make it work and see where we are in time to let our finances, where we're not operating in such a deficit, let's get that back. Talking about a pool, we need to re-roof the auditorium that we've already spent a ton of money going into it. It's gonna be destroyed if we don't re-roof that because it's leaking on that equipment. So just an option that I would like to consider.
And I assume since the last time we all got numbers on all this, supply chain issues are affecting everything, so I'm sure it's at least double what we already heard or more. I'm renovating my house, so.
And along that line, Jill, I was inside in favor of the six-room wing, just because we are operating with what we have now in 6 rooms is 6 more rooms. And it's financially responsible, we can always add again later potentially. But I had thought of 0, and I don't know how long we can operate that way.
Yeah, I think the way I was gonna plan it is, if 8 is the median, whether you want to go 8, 10, 12, I would draw the 8 classroom wing and then do, add alternates for 2 additional classrooms and then 2 additional classrooms. At least you get the price for what it would cost for an 8 classroom wing addition, 10 classroom wing addition, 12 classroom. You got it.
Can it be designed so that those classrooms can be added later?
Yeah.
I mean, the end posts are just ready to go, just set more down the line.
If I may, Mr. President, I don't think 0 is an option. If we're going to expect teachers and administrators to deliver the quality of instruction, they will all be held accountable to them having an additional 100 plus kids in a building that wasn't necessarily designed for long term. It's not going to be the best idea. My first recommendation to the board, I still stand on, even minus the financial piece, would be 6 classes. I think we can do some things differently with the programming. May not be what it is right now, but you can use that wing for some of the special, some of the ancillary courses. You may be able to send the science labs out there, some of the other things. I just don't see, and we work Lisa, Moy, and I worked the numbers a little bit on, I just don't see where you'll need 12 classrooms at this point. If you had the luxury of building that, then so be it. My recommendation would be to start at 6, and then Francis, you can still do the same thing, just to give the board an option. But I just think long-term, not adding, if we can, adding classrooms, that we're just having our staff provide instruction in a space that it wasn't necessarily designed to do long-term.
I guess just to compound on that, you know, we've had our LSG discussion tonight, and we've set goals around third, fourth, and fifth graders, and so I think if we don't give them the resources they need, but in a financially responsible way. So I like the 6 with the mindset that when we design it, from an architectural standpoint, that it is gonna potentially be more later, and we have a room there to keep going down, but I don't know that we can do any more than 6 to start with the way
We
the
don't
finance.
know what 6 is
Yeah.
gonna cost.
What is 6 gonna cost?
I don't remember that number off the top of my head.
Well, I guarantee you, it's not 1.8 million or whatever it
Yeah.
was from November.
Yeah. I think running a calculator.
Could you use the calculator?
Roughly 2 million
For 6.
in today's dollars, so you check on the inflation factor, how long it will take to draw and put on the streets.
Francis, if we select a construction delivery method tonight, that doesn't lock us in per se guaranteed, but it gets the ball rolling.
It does get the ball rolling, and again, if you're gonna go through construction manager risk, then, you know, we will help you out with the RFQ documents so that we can solicit those numbers. And guys,
So then our financial commitment, if we selected that tonight, would be whatever it costs for you to move forward with those documents.
Right.
Then I'm in favor of selecting Seymour. I don't know if there's any other discussion around the delivery method.
Second, Seymour.
I guess that'll be my motion that we
Say,
select.
I'm behind it.
I'll formally make a motion that we select construction manager risk as our construction delivery method. Motion's been seconded by trustee West. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. I'm gonna call for a voice roll. We'll start down here, our 2 voices. Jill, trustee Westmoreland, no. Trustee Murray? Trustee Scardamine, yes. Trustee Timmons? Yes. Trustee West?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Say yes, James, put that one down in the book, I'm going
The motion passes 4-2. Thank you all. Francis, thank you, and drive home safely. We don't have you for anything else tonight, do we? Okay, very good.
If you'd like, a hard copy of the copy, as well as a digital file.
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. Just for clarification, we can always vote later not to build anything. We just selected construction manager at risk as construction delivery method tonight. Yeah. Correct.
okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Second.
Okay, item C, discuss and take action on, or potential action on the swim facility. And so I just wanted to update everybody and try to provide some clarification around where we stand on a swim facility today and where we can go in the future. It seems like about a year or two ago, we started talking about building something, and every meeting we came to, we got a new option. It was this pool, this one we done, it was this temporary one here, it was this big facility, it was, you know, go look at Fort Bend ISD and see what they have. So I just want to clarify what we have today and where we can go from here. So the city owns the 16th Street pool, and that is where we swim. And they want to give that pool to us. We have to accept it. So, with that being said, you know, that's our swim team right now, okay? Now, where do we go in the future? So we cannot, and I don't think anybody's gonna disagree, we cannot build a new $10 million facility behind the high school on bonded money. The voters wouldn't approve it, and it's not responsible to do that, right? So if we accept the 16th Street pool, then we operate out of the 16th Street pool for 10 or 12 years, or however long it takes to pay bond money down, so that we can afford to build a facility that we want and need. And so we're there for a long time operating that pool. And if we do that, then we have a $1.6 million investment in that pool to put the Murtha pool in, and we have about another, at least $500,000 investment to put other decking and handicap accessible and parking lot and whatever else needs to go in that's not physically the pool itself. So at least $2.1 million so that we can swim there for 10 years, and then we can build our own facility. So recently, the other option has come up, and that is the community swim center that we've all heard about, the aquatic center. And so that thing was going to be a water park, and I mean, there was just all kinds of stuff that we didn't really want to get involved with. But they've scaled the project down. As far as I know, they've lost the hospital as a partner. And so there's not going to be a rehab pool in there anymore. There's not going to be a water park in there anymore. Basically, what they want to put in is an 8 or 10 lap competitive swim pool, a 4-lap warm up, warm down pool, and an outdoor pool that would resemble something like what you would see outside of a hotel resort, right? Walk in, 4-foot depth, you kind of walk around. There might be some slides coming in on the sides, but by no means is it a water park. And so that would be the city's day use pool. The proposal is that the district would have full control over the schedule of the competitive swim pool. And so all we would have to do is say, hey, our swimmers swim every day from 5 to 7, they swim every day from 3 to 5, and our football program wants it every Saturday from this time, and our soccer program wants it at this time. And so we just block those out in the programming, and then it would be open to others to use in between, including other school districts who would pay a third party to use it. The facility would be located, so the athletes would walk out the back door of the high school to the baseball stadium and cross the street. And so that's how close it would be. So is it not physically on our site, but it's the next best thing. Some of the other concerns were, well, who runs it and who's going to be responsible for pumps breaking down. And so the great thing is we don't run it. We have no staff over there. We have no maintenance responsibilities over there. We have no chemical responsibilities over there. Essentially, there's a third party that runs the facility, and we share in the gains and losses with somebody else. The other two partners would be the county and the city if their boards decide that they want to get into this together. So our responsibility on a debt service would be $200,000 a year. That builds the $10 to $12 million facility that has all 3 pools in it with the parking lots that they're going to build over there. That price tag could be cheaper if we allow them to use our parking lots or if we get grants, but those are the worst case scenario numbers. A third party would run the facility, so nobody's getting called to fix pumps. Somebody else is doing it at the end of the year. If there's a $300,000 loss in the facility, or if it's $600,000, then that's split up between the 3 partners. So essentially, we have our own pool we can use anytime we want for the operating costs of $200,000 debt service plus a third of the gain or loss. I don't know the exact numbers, but if we were to use 16th Street pool, we're going to have $60,000 of gas to heat it, and whatever it costs to maintain and insure and do all of those things. Plus, if a pump breaks or something needs to be done, we're on the hook for the entire thing because it's our pool. We have no partners in it. So those are the 2 options. I really am in favor of an aquatic center if it works as it was described. Just because it's simple and it's here and it's brand new, state of the art, it's for our athletes. And it's not just for our swim team, it's for all of our athletes. So we're benefiting more than just a handful of students. Before we keep the 16th Street pool.
We have to take the 16th Street pool anyway.
Yeah, but we don't have to sink $2.1 million into it.
But if we don't, then nobody gets to swim until this other facility is built.
Right, so there was some discussion with the city about continuing to operate it the way they are, at least for another year, because they're committing to it. At least I heard they're gonna do it for at least for another year before they shut down and say, we're not doing anything else. Now you need to take it and maintain it. So we would get a year of that potentially if we could talk to them. And then maybe some cost sharing with gas in the future until the other facility gets built. And that's the other negative point that I want to bring up is how long is this aquatic center going to take to build? So I don't know the answer to that. But if it takes too long, then I'm not in favor of it, right? We need something soon because we've been doing this song and dance for a couple of years now. And we've just got to commit to doing something.
So in that meeting, I recall it being $4 million that we need up front for the cost just to build the facility. And then after that is where it comes in yearly. So to move forward, they're asking for the proposal price to be split, which our portion would be $5,000 as a district, and then the county will pay $5,000 and the city will pay $5,000 to just get it reworked. But then after that, it's going to cost us $4 million.
The district.
The district alone,
Over-
the city.
Over 30 years. That's the bonded portion.
Right, but we have no way to bond.
Right, so
So
they're
we
talking
have-
about them doing $6 million each and us just paying $200,000, the city paying $200,000, the county paying $200,000, but the bonds are running through the city and the counties. with their
And
$200,000.
that we have had conversations with the city manager, and she said, yes, that's where we're headed, or that's from that meeting we were in.
So that's from that meeting we were in,
Yeah.
so I don't know the answer to that. But we're not being required to pay $4 million up front, and I agree with you, we can't bond $4 million right now. I mean, our valuations came just in time to finish our last project.
Yeah, we can't bond anything.
So there's a lot of ifs.
I think, again,
There's a lot of ifs and the runway even to clear all the ifs and to build the pool, I mean, you're talking years.
And since we have no control over all of this, in the long run, we have spent a lot of money. So if we commit to anything tonight, or do we know now, are we gonna get funds to do any of this, whether it is to go in with them or go in where? Can we honestly say tonight that we totally commit to going the city's way or the city, or can we commit saying that we have funding to go through any of this right now?
No, and I'm not asking for a commitment tonight. I think the only thing really, and Jill brought it up, is there's a proposal that dives in deeper to this project, and it's in your board book, but it talks about conceptual design and cost and all these other things. And it costs $15,000 for this company to do it. And so they've asked all three partners to go to the boards and say, would you potentially be on board with this project? Does it make sense? Will you spend $5,000 on this project? So the only thing we would be asking for a commitment tonight is $5,000. And then if the city comes back and says yes, and the county comes back and says yes, and I believe the city manager was already on board with it, and the county commissioners meet in a week, they meet next week, then if and only if the other two commit to it, would we spend the money, then the project documents come together, and we sit down and say, how do we afford it, who bonds it, you know, what are the construction costs, what are the timelines, how is it gonna work, who's the third party, interlocal agreements, and it's not gonna be like the interlocal agreement that we have now with the pool, which I know is a headache, because anytime something happens over there, it's, well, the school district did, or the city did it, and who's gonna pay for it, and then if it's a safety issue, we have to go do it because it's our kids over there, right? We can't just keep pushing it up. So this on interlocal agreement's not gonna be like that, it's gonna be a third party who manages it. And at the end of it, they just say, you guys all broke even this year, or you guys all lost $500,000, you each owe 166 or whatever it comes out to. Which is, you know, we can run numbers, but what are we gonna spend yearly to do the 16th Street pool? And if they're comparable, then we've got a state-of-the-art facility here versus busing our kids across town, creating more potential incidences of kids, you know, on the road versus being right here. So I don't know the cost comparisons, but those are all things I want to look at before I even committed to it.
And my only other concern is that the 16th Street pool will be open to the community, whereas this pool will only be available to applicants.
You couldn't, the 16th Street pool will not be
It
open.
will not be open, so
No.
we're gonna close that and it's totally.
Once the city stops running it, and if we have it, we're not going to get in that public with that pool.
So
This would be open to the public. It would have a day use outside pool that would resemble something, and I don't think I have to
For
picture
them
it.
to be able to give it back to us, the city to be able to give it to the school district, don't we have to allow some sort of public use, whereas that would be fulfilled by Aquacats?
I would think we would have to, but
I'm sure. Why
Because-
would we have to provide public?
you wouldn't.
So we're saying we're shutting the pool down to Aquacats. Aquacats are not allowed because they're not part of the school district.
I think the Aquacats would swim at this aquatic center if it was built.
But if,
Will they be able to build that?
no, they will not.
They're not building that.
They're not
without us.
building that
Well,
without
that's
us.
what she's
And I'm-
asking. Well, there.
That's what I'm saying, so
Right,
if we
so
don't,
there'll be no other pool.
and we tell Aquacats no, then
Well,
you just shut down Aquacats,
So it's, no,
right?
it's a youth program that feeds the swim. Not, when you said public, I thought you meant like a day use, like pay $2 swim for the day. I think programs that support swim instruction and, you know, learn to swim programs would absolutely still be a part of the program.
So is the, long-term, is the $4 million even something that this district can swing? Because if it's not, then is this really a discussion to be had on the table?
Yeah, so it's $200,000 a year. Instead of saying $4 million, we're not writing a check for $4 million. It's $200,000 a year, which I think we're gonna spend anyways,
So we can't
running the
bond.
16th Street. We're not bonding it,
So who's doing it?
the city and the county.
But I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's what this, I don't think the city sat in the county and agreed at that table.
I don't
To
think they
say-
did either, but they discussed the
Right,
potential of it, right? The logistics of it is possible.
it's possible.
They didn't commit to it, they didn't have a quorum there.
Well, there were even comments sitting around that table saying, this is not a great idea. We're not gonna bond, and if we're gonna bond, then we're gonna do it on our own, and we'll charge all the use of aquatics.
Yeah, what's in it for them?
Yeah.
By taking our bond and debt, that's just making the payment to them.
Yeah, there's an interlocal agreement. What's in it for them is our commitment to a third of the operating losses and gains and $200,000 a year. And they're not gonna bond it and do it themselves and rent it out to us. If we're not a part of it, it's not going here. They've already mentioned it, we'll go on the other side of town, maybe. But yeah,
I just don't believe that this is a feasible option for the school district. So to go and spend, yes, it's $5,000, but it's $5,000. And we keep $5,000 here, $5,000 there, and all of that adds up to be a good chunk of change.
And I agree with you, I don't think it's, anytime that we are asking citizens of the community to give their monies to, and then close it off to what it is just for this segment of people or students or whatever. Right now, we only have one city pool operator, and that's Hill. So, I just think that we should not ask the people in the community to give towards something that the whole community is not going to be able to participate. Does that make sense? I just think if you're gonna ask me for something, I wanna be able to use that. And I know we need a swimming pool, I know that we're a big swimming pool, I know all of that, but I just cannot say, yes, let's do it.
so the whole community is gonna be able to use the aquatic center. The county's gonna be running programs, the city's gonna have a day use pool outside with slides. And then when the district doesn't have the competitive pools blocked for the athletes, it will be open for laps swimming to the public as well. The other option, the other pool is not gonna be open to if we keep
Blocking dates, they say, if they were to register what, block, that.
those are all in discussion No, I don't think the intention is, hey, you get to block whatever you want, and then we just go block it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
I mean, we can't be that way, but we can say, hey, they do swim every single day for these 2 hours, twice a day, whenever, you know, and meets and that sort of thing, all that can be blocked out. So,
So how many schools are you actually talking about? Because I think it sounds like you're talking about one, and then you're talking about two or three.
it's 3 pools at the aquatic center.
It's one competitive pool.
Yep.
It's a warm-up pool.
Yep.
And then there's a pool outside.
Correct.
So, okay. All right. Just a big one.
And no one's pretending it's gonna make money. Aquatic centers lose money. But the 16th Street pool's gonna lose us money, and we're gonna have our maintenance people, and we're gonna be responsible for the chemicals and the pumps, and have people over there and insurance, and keeping the building open and all that, so. I mean, there's positives and negatives on both sides, and I see them.
And we know that that'll be more than $200,000.
I don't know that. I know the gas estimates came in at about $60,000 a year, so you can start there and move up. Is that, I think that was right, about $60,000 a year, but.
What depends on if you get the new lining and all the, you can't do it quick. It's more efficient.
The city doesn't pay gas right now.
They don't pay themselves gas, no. If we take that over, then I mean, I don't know that they do it, but I don't anticipate asking them, hey, would you continue to pay for the gas?
I only struggle that I get it's only $5,000, but we gotta do something with the 16th Street pool, and nobody's gonna swim, so we might as well just move on down the road, deal with our own pool, fix it, and let people swim in it for the next 10 years until we move on, you know, something else happens with the district. Us deciding about this grand plan joint venture with all these open questions that may or may not happen 5 years from now, I just think it's crazy.
Why we don't have control of not the pool, but.
It's not the perfect answer. This pool thing, there's no perfect answer, but we got this pool. If we can renovate it to the point where it's at least more functional than it is, which wouldn't take much, that's, in my opinion, the better option.
was like $2.6 million.
It's at least 2.1.
2.1. Which is, so I mean,
Half of
I'd
4.
I'd spend $5,000 to hear what they have to say. I mean, you know, once we do the $5,000, if the other two don't even put up the $5,000, then we, okay, like, it's not an issue, because we're wondering how much interest they have. But if everybody's willing to at least put down that and say, let's talk about it, then we can get that information, and then we can make a logical decision. Right now, we're trying to make a logical decision about something, and we don't even have all the facts.
I have enough facts.
Okay.
Well, one way costs 2.1 million, and you've got a 16th Street pool that's gonna cost you every year, and the other way is a $4 million investment over 30 years that it's gonna cost you $200,000 a year plus some. I'll make a motion that we spend the $5,000 on the, let me get the language of it.
The 2.1 million, does that give us a warm-up pool as well? Coach Button, do you remember what? Would there be a section for a warm-up pool with the renovation?
Proposal at the 16th Street pool from the Murphy Eye was to put stainless steel where we currently have plaster tile and to redo completely the pump room. And then what we estimate was probably less than $500,000 to redo the building and the deck, but we would be responsible for anything else.
Right.
He's responsible for the pool itself, the shell, and the pump room. And I think he's given us a 25-year warranty on those.
There would be the same number of lanes.
Yeah, everything else, yeah.
But there's no warm-up, warm-down pool, right?
No, he's just
jumping.
redoing the pool off the shelf and making it safe and well.
When you say the pump room, does that include the,
The iron that's there,
and
yeah.
heaters and?
Oh, yeah. Completely redoing the filtration pump and heater and sanitation. To give us, the ultraviolet and chemical treatment. So that's, right now, we just have sanitation. The more modern way of doing it is add UV system. And with double hit to make it a lot safer.
Does this proposal include any, piping
Oh, yeah.
work that?
All that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
It'd be like-
we don't know what you get into.
Right, exactly. I just didn't want him to throw up walls and be like, all right, I got the walls up, and the room, everything between y'all.
Is that the same proposal that the guy presented to us up here about the river?
Yeah, we've had that.
Yeah, so that was pretty, I like the guarantee. We have the guarantee.
Yeah, but to answer your question, it doesn't include a second pool. Just to redo the pools.
And you would still have the diving well and all of it.
Right, same depths, because he asked me for all the dimensions, and I gave them to him. The presentation that Dr. Scott had was, that we got by email from him, is for our current dimensions.
Okay, so I was gonna make a motion that we spend $5,000 if and only if the county and city also agree to for the conceptual and budget package as presented in your board book. So second to the motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been seconded by trustee West. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Any or no? Motion fails 4-2. Okay. Item D, public hearing on School First. Rick Johnson. Rick, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing A-okay. Thank you. It's real good to be seen. This is a yearly requirement that DEA is a first indicator of ratings each year, and so this is the one for the space is like, it's like a year lag. School First rating for this year is based on the 2019-20 data. Financial report, the audit from the past particular year. We received above standard achievement, which was 88. So we missed being superior by 2 points. This is also an additional information that I'm required to give. First thing is that the superintendent's current employment contract, is it on the website? The answer is yes. Also, we have to report the reimbursement for that current year, which was 1920, what the reimbursements were for the board members and the superintendent. For example, like travel. Now, this looks a little odd because COVID hit, so therefore didn't travel much after that started. So for that year, superintendent expenditures were reimbursement for $3,460. Board member position one was $539. And then there were no reimbursements paid to the other board members, except for board member number 7. But again, that was a COVID year when we cut that down, travel and training, everything for that current year, 1920. And then, these things are all zero, but are not applicable, but I have to go over them. Outside compensation or fees received by the superintendent of professional services non-reported for that year. Gifts received by executive officers and board members, first degree relatives, if any, value of greater than $250 or more, none reported to us for that. And then business transactions between school district and board members, there were none reported, so. There were actually 19 indicators for this current year. There was 20, but one of them they didn't use. So out of the 19 indicators, we received a maximum score on 16 of the 19. I'll run these pretty fast. The annual financial report was submitted on time. We received an unmodified opinion. We're in compliance with all debt requirements, which means we paid our debt on time on the due dates. We made timely payments to TRS, Teacher Retirement System, TWC, Texas Workforce Commission for unemployment and the IRS. And then number 6, the average fund balance over 3 years is less than 25% decrease. Fund balance exceeds 75 days of operational expenditures. We received full points on that. Ratio of current assets to current liabilities based on the scale is sufficient to receive full points. Revenue exceeds expenditures for that year, and the budgeted revenues to actual revenues average less than 10% variance. In other words, what we budgeted, there was no indication of where budget differed by more than 10%. And then administrative cost ratio is less than the threshold. In other words, they have a scale depending on the size of your school. As far as the cost ratio was in compliance. This is always kind of strange, but it's like a double negative. School district did not have a 15% decline in student staff ratio in 3 years. An ADA within a lot of range of the biennial. In other words, we predict to the TEA what our average rate of attendance is, and so they have to make an estimate, so then they want us to make sure that it was accurate, and it was. And the themes data that we report to the TEA, there was no variance, so we got full points there. There's no material weaknesses in internal control, financial reporting, and no material non-compliance of grants, contracts, or federal law. The school district posted the required financial information on its website, which we do currently on the website. You can find the financial statement and the prior year in the budget and the adopted budget. And then also there's a new one that the school board members discussed district's property values within 120 days after the appraisal district reported. In other words, we told you what the values were, and so at that time, there were 3 indicators that we didn't receive the maximum score. Number of days cash on hand sufficient. We had 81 days cash on hand and needed to be 90. So the ratio of long-term liabilities and total assets was sufficient, which means that basically the next 2 means that, as we know, we have quite a bit of debt. So therefore, 125 to $126 million debt, we're in pretty much that's the amount of money that we have from debt. So therefore, it causes us not to receive the full amount of points there. So as our values increase as a district and our property values have increased over the past 2 years, I look forward to that changing. We've been very fortunate that our property values in our district each year have increased kind of higher than most people. Not so much as I-35 corridor is around Austin, but as far as Southeast Texas, we've been very fortunate. So. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Good review. Thank you, Rick. That was just a public hearing. Okay. Item E, approval of the order of annual trustee election. So at that time again, we have to order our annual election. So this year's election will be on May 7th, 2022. so we can start accepting candidates for trustees positions 1, 2, and 3 this year. Are there any questions or discussion? Is there a motion to approve the order of annual trustee election?
I make a motion to approve the, go ahead.
Motion's been made by trustee Robinson to approve the order of the annual trustee election. Is there a second to the motion? Motion's been seconded by trustee Westmoreland. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The motion passes 6-0. Okay, item F, consent agenda. Take a deep breath. 1, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. A, board workshop meeting, November 8, 2021. B, regular board meeting, November 16, 2021. And C, special board meeting, December 13, 2021. 2, approval of the November and December financial reports. 3, approval of the increase to hourly wage rate for at-will employees serving in a high-needs special education settings. 4, employment of personnel. 5, resignations. 6, second reading of local policy update 118, CFD local, accounting, activity, funds management. CQB local, technology, resources, cybersecurity. DFE local, termination of employment resignation. DP local, personnel positions. EHAA local, basic instructional program required instruction, all levels. EHBC local, special programs, compensatory accelerated services. EIE local, academic achievement retention and promotion. FDE local, admissions school safety transfers. FEA local, attendance compulsory attendance. FEC local, attendance for credit. FFG local, student welfare, child abuse and neglect. FL local, student records. 7, second reading, approval of EHB local, curriculum design, special programs. EHBAA local, special education identification, evaluation, and eligibility. 8, take action to approve the first addendum to the delinquent tax collection contingent fee contract with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott LLP pursuant to section 6.30 of the tax code. Said contract being for the collection of delinquent government receivables owed to Bay City Independent School District, and notice of said first addendum is posted with the agenda in accordance with section 2254 of the government code. 9, take action to approve the resolution to adopt the early turnover of personal property taxes pursuant to tax code section 33.11. Is there any item that any trustee would like to remove from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Employment of personnel, we will go into closed session. Is there any other item that read so many things. Any trustee would like to move any other item for separate consideration outside of the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda without regard to item 4, employment of personnel?
Motion to approve the consent agenda without item 4.
Motion's been made by trustee Timmons. Is there a second to his motion? Motion's been seconded by trustee Robinson. Any further discussion? Any other item anybody wants to remove? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes 6-0. We will convene into closed session at 7:59. back in open session, and we are on item F, consent agenda. 4, employment of personnel. Is there a motion to approve employment of personnel?
I make a motion to approve the employment of personnel.
Motion's been made by trustee Murray to approve the employment of personnel. Is there a second to the motion? Motion's been seconded by trustee Robinson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The motion passes 6-0. Okay, congratulations to all of those. And I'd just like to make a quick statement before we turn this over to Lone Star Governance. There was an item in the consent agenda that I'm really proud of the administration for getting done, and that's the pay increase for the employees in the special needs. The special needs, because my wife works in the district in the special needs class, and I can't tell you how many times she came home crying because she got hit dead. She had to make food and feed kids by a spoon and change diapers, you know. So you got 10, 11-year-old kids and she's changing the diapers. And so the work they do is more than just a teacher or a teacher's aide. I mean, it really is a life coach for those kids because they need so much more and they deserve so much. And so those teachers and aides deserve everything they're getting and more, in my opinion. So now that my wife didn't work for the district, I can advocate for it. I never want it to be a conflict of interest, you know. But very cool. I'm happy we did that. And I think you guys deserve a round of applause for getting that done. Okay, item 6, Lone Star Governance. Instead of reading them all, Tony, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good to be back with you. We had a very nice meeting with the leadership team a couple of weeks ago in planning for this. We had some really in-depth discussion on how we're doing and progress on these things. We've got some great data for you tonight. So what we're going to do, you know, we've enjoyed having Ms. Moya make the presentation, but the principals were like, they wanted to speak. You know, they said, Ms. Moya's doing all the talking. We need to get out here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back and cover some data for you from Goal 3, and we're going to look at Goal Progress Measures 3.1, 2, and 3. We're going to also look at Goal 4 and Goal 5, and all the Goal Progress Measures for those. So we have 3 principals that are going to make the presentation. We're going to start out with Ms. Rosales. She is going to cover GPM 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. She's got a little bit of an explanation. You may have noticed when you looked at the data that in the GPM, the baseline number is a little different than if you look at the baseline number for all students. And she's going to start out by explaining what happened on that and then what we're going to do going forward. Yes. Oh, let me move that for you.
Thank you.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you so much. Although I'm a little shy kind of speaking for y'all, I'm not, because it's an opportunity not just to brag on the kids, but also to brag on the work I'm doing today. So being a math teacher, I kept thinking, how am I going to explain this? It's 74 and it's 66, but I promise there's a good explanation for that. So for the Goal 3, there are 3 ways how we can track that data. And one of them is by the students taking the TSI, except for the students that we had, that we celebrated this afternoon. So those students have to pass the TSI at 3 levels, which is reading, writing, and math. The other way how they can get that certification is if they take SAT, ACT, and SAT at Bay High School or any other testing institution. Then another opportunity is that we have the 2 classes, English and math, that are getting ready for college. So at the college level, we have those remedial classes. Well, we partner with WCJC, and we have those classes here at Bay City High School as our students are seniors that truly will get them prepared to take college classes and or take the TSI. So notice that the numbers are a little bit different. My baseline is at 66% because that is the data that I can actually track. But not all of our students take the opportunities here at Bay City High School. Some of them do not take the TSI. They're super, super smart and they go and take the SAT. So we don't track those in our system. Also, the data is lagging. So for example, this first class that we are tracking, for the 66, that is the class that graduated last year. And you may wonder, well, why are we tracking them? Because that's what counts in accountability. So when we get our test scores next school year, it's going to be 40% of those scores will be STAR tests, 40% of those kids that left me already, and 20% of the graduating class that is graduating now. So that's why it's important to still track them. Even till December, our data could still be changing because since the data is lagging, we have to December. So let's say some of those kids that left us for college and I asked them to come on Saturday to please take the test, and they said, no, thank you, I'll do it later. I pray that they did, so some of them might have done it without me. And that's how that number at the state is a little bit different than my number here. But I just want to make sure that I explain the difference.
So can I ask you a question,
Absolutely.
Stella? So that 80 that is your target, is that changing?
That is not changing.
Okay.
That is not changing because we want to make sure, as you noticed earlier, we have those sophomores start taking the test. We have plans to go to Bay City Junior High next month. So our goal is to start tracking our data better and faster. We also have free TSI testing, so we want those kids to take that opportunity. So when they say, please, Ms. Reyes, can you leave me alone, I take it later, I'm going to do my best to persuade them not to take it later, but take it with us. So you might notice also, we have a 66 and you only have a 13. We do, but don't worry, because that is only the ones who have taken TSI and with us here at Bay City High School. But we still have the ones that are going to complete the early college classes, and we're going to have the ones that will take SAT and TSI. We have close to 10 sessions each Saturday to offer those opportunities for the students. So we will not just meet that goal, we will surpass that goal. We also have data that we track throughout the year, and the school knows the data. They know what our goals are. I'm going to give you an example. So these students that were here this afternoon, they passed it in 8th grade. And when we're looking at our data, we're looking at our goals as a school, Mr. Butt says, well, if they passed language arts back in, it kind of sounded kind of like that, when they were in 8th grade, why can't they pass in math when they're in 10th grade? And I said, absolutely. So he said, went and visit with his team, and he said, let's do it. And that's just the beginning of his goals. So Mrs. Baker stayed after school, worked really hard with those kids, and here we have 13 more kids that we can put here that we're not even tracking yet for y'all. We are tracking in our system. So 4 years from now, those 13 kids are going to be in the system already, and that gives us an opportunity to track those kids, not the 13 that we have here. So any questions about these numbers for the first goal?
So like the 13%, that's a cumulative number. You're not gonna lose that, it's just gonna go up and up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're racing to get to 66, but we don't have to worry about fluctuations, we're just adding and piling on.
Absolutely. So we also make sure when we are doing the master schedule, either that the students have a TSI point, and those that don't have it, and they need a little bit more persuasion, we also have a mentor, someone who has to track them, and remind them about Saturday school, remind them about studying, about the tutoring sessions. I cannot help them with English, but I can help them with math. So we find those professionals that can help them and do tutoring for them and help them. So I know that probably concerns you, but I can assure you we're going to meet that goal or do even better than that. Each year we have improved that goal, and that is one of the reasons why our scores are so well, because of the CCMR component. Questions?
I'm looking across the graph, and it's an old question that I'm going to ask you about.
Please do.
But African Americans, I am looking at your goal, and I'm looking at where they are now on the 27th. Is it because they are not taking the TSI? Why is it so?
That is a great question. We do struggle with not just our African American kids, we struggle with the students coming to take the TSI. Especially the last year, there's lots of begging. On Saturdays when we have TSI, we have about 40 students that are registered to come to take the TSI. And with a reminder the night before, we might have 50% of them showing up with a good day. If you notice, the 73, is our baseline. What happened is that in the 73, we do have a lot of our students that do be prepared to take that remediation course that we offer, which is math and English. And our students don't have much of a choice to pass that class because we track their data every 6 weeks. So if they're not passing a class, we make sure that we contact parents, that we have graduation RTI meetings, and we develop a plan to assist them. So we track them along the way, and that's why the 73 is so high, because the majority of the students do receive their college point through those 2 classes. But yes, ma'am, we do struggle with them coming to take their TSI. Even during the day, sometimes they have to tell me, I can't find so-and-so, and I go to the classroom and go get them.
So we actually had this conversation during our meeting with Tony, because I identified the same thing. But as we continue to talk about providing programs for our like kids and providing access to all of our programs for our kids, we have to get our African American students and families into our more rigorous programs. We just do. So if we look at the numbers percentage wise, we have to push and push and push. We have to come out with a TSI. I pose the exact same question. So if we start looking at our advanced courses, what are we actually doing for that population of students, not just when they get to high school, but early on? Are we actually taking advantage of the rigorous coursework in junior high school? Are we going into the career paths? Are we looking at the early college program? I mean, who's actually applying for those? I push the stuff on that. Well, let's see. If the school district being a barrier for a certain population of students from getting into the program, and I can sit here openly and honestly say no. So what do we actually do for our parents to push them and to get our African American students to come on board with more rigorous coursework that we actually have? So that's absolutely a good question that I pose to Stella, and we all have a conversation at their leadership team. That's an area we need to improve as a school district.
I would say that brought the most conversation in our meeting. I mean, it was the elephant in the room. Look at that. So why? You know, that's the very question we asked and discussed about. And the access to those programs is there. It's just, like Dr. Scott said, getting students to take.
The TSI tests are done during school hours?
We have many options. We have just about every Saturday school. We have Saturday Academy, most students that show up to take the TSI. So school teachers show up to show intervention to help them pass the STAR test, and show to tutor for TSI and help them get ready for that test. We'll also have them during the day. So even if a student chooses not to go to Saturday school, and if he or she did not take it during the day, they chose not to take it. Because every student gets at least one opportunity to take it during the day.
You say you have 10 sessions.
At least, yes ma'am. One of the advantages that we do have, as you know, is our early college program as well. So with our sophomore class that was here, that African American percentage is already higher. But that is because the junior high started working with me earlier. So those students were ready since they left Bay City Junior High. And I want to stop and emphasize that because it is huge when we have that partnership with our principals, or when Mrs. Cummings sometimes calls me and says, so-and-so does not believe da-da-da-da. Can you please talk to her on the phone? And there are times that we have conferences with the student on the same line about what are those opportunities at Bay City High School, what is that we expect from them. Something that it is a disadvantage, and I just share because I like to be very transparent, is that some of our parents do not believe that it is our job or that we should not push their kids to go to college. They believe that our only responsibility is to graduate from high school. So there are times when we encourage them and we push them a little bit to come and take those opportunities. We do have parent pushback where they will say, this is not a graduation requirement, why you keep pushing this? We also have other instances where they want their whole focus to be on an extracurricular activity. They want to master their goal on becoming a basketball player or a soccer player. And when I'm talking about TSI, that's not their goal yet. So sometimes we're able to tell them you have to go to school so you can count all the money that you're going to get as a professional soccer player. And sometimes they believe us, and sometimes they're not, and we're still working on that. But I just want to share that with you all, that those are the struggles that we do have as we all try to persuade the students to take opportunities on that.
So one more thing, again, and this was a good conversation that we had. So I know Estella said for them to go to college. What we want for all of our kids is for them to have options. If you take the TSI and you don't want to go to college, at least you have the option. You take the TSI, you get your certification, you get your welding certification, you want to go right to work, you can. But if you decide 2 weeks into that you want to go to college, you've already taken the TSI, so now you have that out of the way. We have to keep pushing our kids to say, listen, it's your decision whether you want to go to college, career, military. Here are the options. Here's some tools that we want you to have before you go, just in case you change your mind and you want to explore something else. I think that's the language we have to have, because if you say, well, take this TSI because you're going to college. Like, I'm not going to college. I have my welding certificate. I'm going to make money, which you're going to make some money. Encourage me to, well, just have this just in case you decide to go on and get a 4-year degree as well.
And just to piggyback and commend you, I had forgotten that my grandson took this, as a matter of fact, I don't even know what it was, but he got his OSHA card. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just stuck it in his book for memories. I remember he said, Granny, I got an OSHA card. I said, oh, okay, stuck it in the book. But he just got hired at generics with that OSHA card. So I do commend you, and I do see that, but I still tell him all the time, you still need more. So it is up to the parents to kind of push. And now that you've said it, and I knew it, as a community member that's always thinking education, I know what to go back and communicate. Because they come back with a different story. You know, Saturday is like this, it's a punishment. No, it's not a punishment, but that's what they see it as, being a punishment. So we have to take that away. It's not a punishment, it's something.
It is not a punishment at all, even for students that receive STAR remediation. I will tell you, I had even last year, this is always for basic junior high, came and had breakfast with our students before they took the TSI. And so we show up with donuts, juice, even if they go and take the STAR test, they know that they're there for school. It's never a punishment. Thank you for bringing that up. Any more questions? Hey, I'm really excited about this one. Y'all kind of dipped a little bit into it before I was on the little one, and that is industry-based certifications. So notice as well that our numbers are a little bit different. We have 20%, and we have our goal to be 30%. My goal is still 20%, and my number was also slightly different. Note that that is also lagging data. So we have some cosmetologists that went and took the test and they bypassed it. And we call them, they graduated already. And we call them and say, come back. We're gonna pay for the test, we're gonna take you to take the test, and that number changed a little bit. So instead of being a 20, it's a 22, but those numbers were real at the time that we created the goal, and now that we're tracking the data. That also might also change a little bit. We have some in the medical field that went and got their certification as well. So I want to highlight that we have already surpassed the goal for every population, except for the white population. As you notice, we had a 6%, we're working on that 3%. So we have become very intentional to see which of our students are not doing well, but this is only December, and we already are doing higher than what we did last school year. And that is the other opportunity that they have. If they don't want to take their TSI, if they don't want to go to college, we definitely encourage them to get a certification. The good news is that we keep telling them about college. So we might have some kids that some of you gentlemen work at the camps. If you ever have internships or jobs, please call me, because I have a few students in the list that sometimes get a job. But then they call me later and say, guess what? I am going to go to school. The plant offered me a job, and I do need you to give me a chance to take that TSI again. So So even if they don't take and pass those tests at that time, they know the opportunities are here, and we let them come back and take it. Okay? Any questions about that?
So
Yes, sir?
if someone earns a industry-based certificate and also takes the TSI, they're helping you on both?
They do for this goal that we're presenting, not for the state accountability.
Yeah, but
So,
they'll add, yeah, they'll just do one or the other.
right,
Okay.
so if you, some of the 10th graders here, I got their point, they go get a welding certification, I got their point, it doesn't matter, right? They got their welding certification, however, we encourage them to do all, because you don't know if they're gonna go to the factory, they're gonna go to work. So, that is a great question.
So do we need to move the goalpost on this one?
Let's hope so.
About 30% by August of 2025, and we're there today.
We also, and Mrs. Mosher is not here, but when Ms. Mosher works for the counselors to create the master schedule, we truly design our pathways and our classes that we offer based on student interest. So we have a lot of students that want to be welders, and we want to make sure that we have more welding teachers. So that is why our numbers are a little higher as well, because we have pretty much three full-time teachers that teach welding, what we did last year. And we'll be testing in pretty close to spring break, so those numbers will come up next time. Okay? Any questions about that? Our CTE team also tracks that data, and we make sure that those kids are close, come back, and they get tutoring. So on those higher academies, Ms. Robinson, we don't just have STAR tests or TSI, we also have teachers tutoring welding back in the labs. Okay, and this is what I call my baby. So this is the goal that we have when we start working with our kids to actually take the classes, not just take TSI, not just have a certification, but like this kid's here, and I have presented it in some of I'm sorry, I went too fast. Thank you. So these are the students that actually take a class. So the advantages to this is that we have teachers like Mr. Driver, Ms. Stone, Ms. DeLessa that have their masters and they teach at Bay City High School, but they're also working for WCJC. So our students get the opportunity to get a college teacher in their classroom to teach them how college really is. We also have opportunities where we have students taking online classes, but our Bay City High School teachers are proctors. So there's very little opportunity for them not to succeed. We make sure that there's a calendar, we coach them on what is that they need to do to be successful. For early college kids, we actually have a Bridges program that brings them when they're at the junior high and they come to study in the summer, how to take college classes. So we make sure that that support is there. Sometimes things happen and they do forget a little deadline, but we have those teachers that are really focused on what they're supposed to be doing. So I can share with you that sometimes Ingrid Brown is with me on the phone at 9, 10, 11, because some have open technology and technology department is with us on the phone, and we are fixing all these problems. And if we can't fix them, we drive to Bay City High School in the middle of the night and making sure these kids have the opportunity to take the test. So I'm really proud to say these teachers really, really care about our kids, and we're doing whatever it takes to help them be successful. Of course, there's disadvantages, okay? So in order for them to take these classes, they also have to have money to pay for them. We have a large socioeconomic number here in Bay City ISD, so that is the disadvantage. Even some of our kids are ready to take those classes. Sometimes we find them scholarships, sometimes we don't. I know my first year when I came to Bay City High School, our board president gave us 2 scholarships from the organization that you were in, and we were able to push a couple of kids. But that is the disadvantage that we have in there.
Do you know any information about Tide Haven? I heard that Tide Haven actually pays their students tuition if they make A's? Full tuition if they make an A in the class, half tuition if they make a B in the class?
That is really good point. I did not know about Ty Kevin.
I heard that. I don't know that
I'm
as a
sure
fact.
that is possibly true, and why I say that is because we have actually been doing some research with other high schools and other colleges. So there are other colleges in high school that the colleges work with the high school, and they don't charge them for their classes. So we are currently researching other universities and also the colleges to see how they're doing it. But that is a disadvantage that we have in here. We try for those things not to happen if we know a kid really wants to take that test. I was supposed to say this because it was confidential, I won't say names, but teachers pay for kids' classes. So they might know that we have 10 kids that really want to take the test, and then we have anonymous scholarships.
And I'll just tell you, there are districts in our region that have educational foundations that pay for all of the test costs we look at. And some school districts in our region pay it out of their budget.
What's the average cost?
About $400 to $500 with the textbook.
Per test?
Per class.
It's about 300 something, but I always estimate about 500 because we have to purchase a textbook.
In foreign service organizations, Smallman Rotary, we do get some scholarships. Would you rather have big scholarships at the end or a lot of little dual credit
A
ones?
lot of little ones.
Really? A lot of dual credit ones?
Absolutely, because we'll be able to track the data and we'll get to see those students that are already in 8th grade, and we'll be able to help them. And a lot of times if they, especially if they're freshmen and sophomores, they get their, we push them a little bit and they get a class or two, then they start working when they're juniors and seniors, and they start paying for their own classes. Absolutely, but that is a disadvantage. Notice also in our African American, we have 73, I believe, in our first dimension. That means we're getting 73% of them ready for college. But we only have 1% that actually take the classes.
Let me see how many I can get you for over this year.
Thank you so much. Any more questions about the goals? And if you'll ever have questions or suggestions, please send them my way, because with this work on, try to do better every day. Thank you.
That was awesome. Nice to hear that. Now, before we get going to the next one, I'd like to go back, because I failed to mention at the beginning, we needed to kind of review last week's meeting, or it was the November 16th meeting. Your meeting was 182 minutes long that month. We spent about 84 minutes of that on Lone Star Government, so it's about 46%. Your goal is 50%. And it's also one of your constraints, that you not fall below 50%. So we discussed in the leadership meeting some strategies to be able to correct that and change that a little bit. And so we'll continue to discuss that. Setting time limits on certain entities that make presentations, things like that. We discussed that, and so we'll look at it more. Okay, so now Ms. Haig is going to come up, and she's going to be talking about 4.1, 2, and 3, and also 5.1.
First, I look very black hat today, or somebody said that, and they said that, well, it's school board appreciation. We want to thank y'all for all that y'all do. And thank y'all to our watchdogs. I'm not sure if y'all battled it out if who's the top dog yet, but.
Well, it's already been claimed.
But we do appreciate what y'all did in supporting our parents. The night was phenomenal, like having so many parents show up at Holy Participate. Thank y'all for leading the charge on that. I think that was great. And I am dressed black hatty because I think that I have the great opportunity to showcase the phenomenal work that's happening on the Tinny Homes campus. And this is my Tinny Homes pride because our teachers have worked so hard. And this opportunity to get to showcase Gavin to y'all is really important to me because it just showcases the hard work that our teachers have been doing during a year that continues to give them challenge after challenge. They just take challenge after challenge, and they just run with it. So if you look at our percentages, I'm a math person. I like to see numbers going up, especially when we're talking about data. Our data at at Timmy Holmes is a little bit tricky. So although it's going up, it's tricky to talk about because our baseline data is based on our curriculum-based assessments. So we take CBAs, what I'll call the CBAs, we take them at the end of every 6 weeks. And the CBA is directly related to the TEKS that were taught that 6 weeks. So it's not TEKS that have not been taught yet, it's not anything other than the specific skills that the students were taught that 6 weeks. So our first 6 weeks, for instance, in 3rd grade, they talk about place value and addition and subtraction. So our baseline data is really our CBA data on just those 2 very important TEKS, right? So when we got to January's data is showing you that it increased, but that's not true. What's true is what you're seeing is that more of our students were meeting the standards on what was tested in our 3rd 6 weeks. So although this looks great and I would love to be like, yay, it's our data going up, it actually is really just showcasing that our students are achieving on the standards that were tested. Now, what I want to highlight is that our teachers are so particular about our CBAs and what the students are taking. So our first 6 weeks, they focus just on those TEKS that were taught. The second 6 weeks, they spiral in the lowest TEKS from the 6 weeks before. So during the second 6 weeks, our teachers went through and they did spiral reviews, they did small group instruction. They went back and met with the students in maybe we had a mentor teacher on campus for a couple of weeks, and that mentor teacher was working with the students on that specific spiral TEK, and then that TEK is added to the second 6 week CBA. And so we continue to see the growth in those TEKs from that first CBA, and then so like for our second CBA in the second 6 weeks, we took the lowest TEKs from that one and spiraled them into the next CBA. So you're spiraling TEKs each time they take a CBA, which it helps us in the long run because we start with a small test. We start with about 6 questions. And each 6 weeks we're adding more in, which it gives our students that time to really get used to taking longer tests, which we know our STAR test ends up being about 32 questions in math. And so it's slowly getting our students used to taking longer tests as they start to get used to the stamina, which is something huge that we've talked about this year. So where you're going to see our growth with Timmy Holmes is really going to be looking at our March data, which will showcase benchmark data. For benchmarks, we'll use Release STAR test. And so we'll have the benchmark data from our math test, and then you'll see our true STAR data. So you'll be able to see where were our kids in March on a Release STAR test from last year, and then see where are they now. What I love about Lone Star Governance is we're not just celebrating our kids approaching, getting close to grade level. We're celebrating them being on grade level. So I really appreciate that we are working on our needs. But I did think that I wanted to make sure that I showcased our data in the right way where although it looks, yay, we're going up, our data is a little bit skewed because it really is more being intentional about the TEKS that we're teaching and are they making progress. And then part of math is that we spiral back in. Math is you hit a little bit of place value here and then you come back to it when you do addition and subtraction. Then you hit a little bit of skip counting and you come back to it for multiplication and division. And so that's where you kind of see with our data. It's really more, this is more of a showcase of the 6 weeks and the tests that we're taking. So ours didn't really lend itself well until we get to March and June to be able to show you growth. But I do think that this is phenomenal. I just think of what our students have been through, and for 22% of our kids to be meeting standards, although that leaves us a lot of room for growth, but I just feel like that just showcases that our teachers are working really hard on Tier 1 instruction, which is best practices. It's meeting our students where they're at, understanding small group. They've been doing a lot of summative assessments, so weekly they're assessing their students to see where they are, and then hitting those small group instructions. And it's really just showcasing and lending itself to that. So, yes, Dr. Scott.
So March is going to be your predicted number?
Yes, sir.
Performance.
That's correct. Yes, sir. And we wanted to be able to share what we do with our CPAs. So our CPAs, I think it's important for y'all to see that process of the CPAs, and And it does have some good information in there. We go back and we talk about the data, even in our we call it PLT now, but during our PLC groups, we look at where were our kids, what did we do to spiral, was there growth? If there wasn't growth in one teacher's class, but there was in another, what is this teacher doing? I have never heard the type of academic conversations like we have had the past 2 years centered around data, the teachers really knowing the skills of their students and making sure that they're spiraling back in. And unfortunately for our teachers, fortunate for our students, our teachers, my third grade teachers are having to be first and second grade teachers along with being a third grade teacher. So along with them teaching their grade level standards, they're also having to go back in and hone in on some of those foundational skills that were not, that weren't reached or that our students missed out on and needed extra support. So I'm just really proud of the work that they've been doing and the intentionality with which they're teaching and supporting our students.
Do you find that you're making the progress back from what was essentially COVID was a challenge because the face-to-face instruction was missing in a lot of students? So is that why you're having to go back and teach first and second skills at third grade level with the third grade skills? Do you find that you're getting more than 1 year to growth out of them?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question because for us, our third graders, their last normal year was first grade. And I think of the foundational skills that our kids learned, they were in place value. And then now they're having to, in third grade, they're having to multiply place value and have to figure it all out. Our teachers are really having to not just teach what they have to teach, but they're having to go back in. So we're seeing growth in skills that the students have, and then the teachers are just having to be intentional with the spiraling that we're going back to. I see phenomenal growth within what our kids are able to do, but I do think that our students just were out of disservice because the foundational skills were lost, and so our teachers are having to be foundational teachers, but typically we just pick up on the skills that were already taught at the higher grade levels.
So let me jump in. So to answer your question, yes, yes, and no. So the yes, is she having to go back because of the pandemic? Yes. The no, I'll jump to the no. The no, well, I'll go back to the other yes. Yes, she's having to go back because our kids are coming in behind the majority of them anyway. So it's a good practice, but she's having to go back because of the pandemic. And this is for all of them. For the pandemic, but you're also still trying to close the gaps that are being created before the kids get to us as well. You answered yes, and I want to see the data to where she can actually be predictive of whether or not, she's going to be able to close the gap. I think we're probably a little bit away from that. I think she said that she's noticing productive instructional practices, but to be able to say that you're going to make as much gains, we're being optimistic,
yes,
and we're being hopeful, but just to have the numbers to actually confirm that.
And that's such a good point, Dr. Scott, because when we set our numbers, so we have a lot of different goals that we're working towards, and we set those numbers, we want to get back to where we were, but these kids will never be where we were. They will never be kids that never had to the gaps of instruction, and so to have them to say, we're going to get back to where we were, we won't get back there, but I do see us going further because our teachers see, and our teachers are working so hard and just being so intentional with what they're doing that I see us skyrocketing through the roof on what we're able to do because they are becoming not just their grade level content specialists, they are now multi-grade level content specialists. And it served them well, but it also has turned them back in.
Do you do grade level?
We do grade level. Absolutely. So we do grade level planning every week. We have PLC every week, and then our teams meet every single week. Some of them meet multiple times. They plan together Tuesdays. We come into PLCs and talk data. We talk just more specific things on Wednesday, and then they go back. Some of them will go back on Thursday and say, what does this look like and how we're teaching it. But the expectation is twice a week.
Okay, you said that the third grade teachers are having to go back and teach second grade. Are the third grade teachers communicating, second and third grade teachers, are they communicating?
That's a great point. We just don't have that opportunity with them being at Winnie Rock Roberts. I think Marissa and I have talked before about that vertical alignment piece. In the TEAS resource system that we use, we have the vertical alignment document, and it's a really phenomenal document. If I could pull it up, I would show you. It showcases the grade levels across, and it shows you what the students learn when. So there's foundational skills that start in 3rd grade, or there's skills that if they learned it in 1st grade, you can click on that and it shows you everything of what that student should know in 1st grade to be able to build on it in 2nd and then in 3rd. And so we've been utilizing that with our instructional coach that's on our campus, and our I call it our VAT, our vertical alignment document, really just lends itself to allowing us more knowledge of what that looks like, since we haven't been able to have those meetings yet. But that is a thought process, and I'm really glad that you brought that up.
The one thing that I've seen, since I've been in Barton, that I think is, I mean, it was really thinking outside the box. That the robot camera, we are having to have to video one of our class sessions and then pass it on down to 1st grade. 1st grade are able to see exactly what your teachers can take from that. And also know, and we look at the, what's it called? The little test that we give every, what is the test called? We all doing it. Help me,
TPR.
Yes, yes, I cannot break it up into our hands. But it helps, because then the 1st grade teachers are passing on down what we need to teach. And so that those kids be prepared once they get to 1st grade. So it's been real good, because we cannot communicate all the time. But that video has really, really helped. You know, when we pass it on to the next grade level, so they can see, and they'll pass it on what they're doing that we are missing in kindergarten. So I thought that was really neat.
Absolutely, and I love that you said that. The way that we have our school set up, although there are hard parts of how we have our school set up right now in the content hallways. We've had some adjustment periods with that. It has lended itself to my 3rd grade teachers are seeing what my 5th grade teachers are doing, and so they're able to kind of see what does that look like. Where also our instructional aides, they're going into so many different grade levels that when they do pull a 3rd grade, or when they do pull a 5th grade student that needs 3rd grade skills, they have that opportunity to have watched it in 3rd grade. But we do miss that piece with this week for sure. Thank you, that's a great idea. So that will be the same with my 4th grade and my 5th grade. So with 4.2, it's the same thing. So we're going in and we're just testing on those on the CBAs. And our teachers, again, so the data that our teachers have been producing, my teachers each have data binders. But even today, we were doing walkthroughs for a different program that we're working through. And our teachers are just being intentional with the kids knowing their data and having those conversations with the kids. The kids are very aware of where they are. I have teachers that are so engulfed in the data that we were about to take a CBA, and one of my teachers was like, well, I know this student, he could have told me which teeth the student was going to do really well on, which teeth the student was going to have trouble with. And he knew that because he was out during this time, and he knew that the student does well for him and not for other people. Just the intentionality, and I just can't stress enough the hard work of the teachers and what they're doing to support our kids through so many different needs. We have win time during school, we have win time after school, and then we have Win Academy, which is Saturday. And then meeting our students where they're at with all of those interventions has just really led to a year that our students maybe shouldn't be at 30% needs on some of the things like in January in 4th grade, they were, January and 4th grade, I think they were, I gotta make sure I say it right. Yeah, they're doing fractions and data representations, which is frequency charts. I hate frequency charts. I'm the worst at it. I will sit in Miss Michelle Davis's classroom every time she teaches it to try and get better at teaching it. But it just, for 30% of our students to be needing any of that while they've struggled through 2 years of something, I think there's a lot to celebrate, although there is still a lot of growth that we need to make. So, and then the same with 4.3. they were really mad that this was gonna be what their data showed, because, of all of my teams, they're very data centered, they're making sure that, the spiraling is going back. And they were like, that's not fair, our first one was whole numbers, and for this one, they were doing, PIMDOS, and the kids, I had a couple of them were out for some extenuating circumstances. You remember PIMDOS, yeah. And so they were just really mad because it's something that they come back to in our 4 to 6 weeks. And so they're like, if we can showcase that again, and I was like, it's okay, we'll be able to showcase all of the growth from March to June. So we just have phenomenal teachers in our district that are really pushing our students. They're making sure that they have best tier 1 instruction, and then they're meeting them in those other ways through small group instruction, through our wait time, and through data-centered instruction.
Is it still Please Excuse My Dear Outside?
It is, yes. I know, I didn't think about it. Well, I was in a 5th grade class and they asked me about it and I started going, I ended up trying to do the solar system and they stared at me and I was like, oh, that's not the right one. They were like, no. And I was like, okay. Maybe it's time for a break. So again, that's with our 5th grade too, and I go into Rosie's, which is 5.1. Everything that we're doing in 5th grade, they understand the totality of the situation is that we have to ensure that our students have these foundational skills so that as they go to the junior high and as we prepare them for TSI, if they don't have the skills from us, then we've done a disservice to them. And so I love that we're a part of Ms. Cummings because it just showcases that what we're doing is really ensuring that our kids have the foundation so that Ms. Cummings and her team can build on that and are not having to make up for what we did or didn't do. So, anything else for me?
So I have something, thanks, not for you necessarily.
Let's finish that one.
And I know you spoke about your teachers kind of being bothered by the numbers and what they are right now, and this is for the entire team. We have to get comfortable with looking at data for usage. This is one point that you actually have to say that you're performing at this level, someone's performing at this level. This isn't personal, but this is the school. The most important part of it is now what are we going to do to increase it? So yes, nobody wants to see a 17, nobody wants, some people don't even want to see 80s. We want to see 90s. But what do you want to do to get better? I think we start to shape the conversation for our teachers and our employees. They say, well, I'm going to go and show this to the board. And they're like, no. The board's question and my question, we see what that is, but the greater conversation is what are we going to do now to impact that number? And continuing to have that conversation when the 17 goes to the 34, and 34 goes to the 72, or what have you. Let's continue to have the conversation about what are we doing to get better, because we see the numbers. Let's talk about the process and move those forward. That's the most important piece.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Hay.
Yes, sir.
Very much. And now Ms. Cummings is going to, okay, sure. Yeah. So Ms. Cummings is going to present 5.2 and 5.3.
Okay, so for goal parks measure 5.2 is a percentage of 6th grade students whose scores meets O or above on the Common Math Assessment will increase from 23 to 28% by May 2022. So our baseline data is a little bit different than Ashley's. So our baseline data is actually last year's stock. So that's actually the end of year data. The January 22nd data is actually our first benchmark that we took the second week in December. So that's where we're at right now. So we know we still have a long way to go. Some background information for 6th grade, just in case if you're not familiar with 6th grade math teams. So traditionally there is a gap when they go from transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, when they go from elementary to the junior high. That gap has basically grown due to COVID. We had a little bit the year before, and then last year our gap has increased. 5th grade teachers are still a little bit more to friendlier language, and in 6th grade there's a new level of complexity for the first time. So examples of what they're facing in 6th grade are negative numbers, percentages, proportionality, and these are areas where students struggle at first, but they do recover throughout the year. Historical data on it, generally my 6th grade numbers have been the lower of the 3 grade levels. So it's not, this is just a baseline for us to know where we need to go, and I have no doubt that the teachers will get there, but this is what we're facing right now. So January's data is a benchmark. My data moving forward is not going to be, like you talked about flexing data, the data that flexes, my data is going to do that. Because the data that I report for March is going to be CBA. Because my next benchmark is not till the last week of March. So that will be after the next board meeting. And then in June, you'll actually be STAR numbers. So it's going to be a little bit, not necessarily we'll see growth. Yes, you definitely want to see growth, but I want to make sure you're actually taking a look at what data we're actually using for this at this time. Sixth grade also has the largest number of new teams for math. They moved a lot of them down from 7th and 8th, about 2012, 2013. So they have actually over 50% new teams in 6th grade. So if you take that into consideration, the new teams that they have, based on some of the gaps that they're missing, and some of those gaps are foundational ones, like just multiplication tables, division. They still have kids doing this in 6th grade. And you're trying to talk about integers, proportions, things along this line. So it is going to be a process for it. With my teachers, I've got 2 excellent math teachers in 6th grade. With our PLCs, they're focusing on activating the prior knowledge, and that's what they can build on, based on what the students are coming to them with. We had 108 students start the year in House Bill 4545 tutoring for math. So with that tutoring, we've added an additional 38 students to that tutoring based on the data that we have from the benchmark. So they're now added to that tutoring. We're also delivering tutoring that's scheduled during our Panther time, which is our intervention and enrichment time that is scheduled during the school day. So, and with that, we've actually, it's about 30 minutes during the school day. We've also hired a retired math teacher to help us with that tutoring. We'll have her 20 hours a week. And what the 6th grade math teachers are doing with that too is they're actually planning and working with the people that are delivering the 6th grade math tutoring. So it's all on the same page. They can eliminate any misconceptions. They're also looking at recording their lessons too. So that will help whoever's delivering the tutoring on that. They do that in the classroom as well too, especially 7th and 8th. We'll see 7th grade data here. But that almost allows the teachers to be in the same place, be in 2 places at the same time. So what they're demonstrating it on the screen up there, what the process is for what they're doing, they can be walking around the classroom and actually see what the students are doing while the lesson's being delivered. After-school tutorials are being held for both House Bill 4545 students, and then I have my teachers that actually stay beyond that for tutoring. So even though, like last year was a long year for it, this year they're long days, but they still are dedicated and stay after that tutoring to work with students, even on Fridays. The math teachers are starting each class with what they call the question of the day, which is focused on what they highly missed questions from the benchmark. So that's where we are with 6th grade. So we know we have a lot of work to do. So they have a lot of making up to do that they are still going back and scaffolding back for that, plus introduce these new teams. With 7th grade is obviously we look at a little bit different. So 6th grade does a lot of the foundation work. 7th and 8th grade build on top of that. So they're building on top of teachers that have been introduced in 6th grade, so they have some background information, some prior knowledge on it. With that also too, is we have a teacher who splits between 7th and 8th grade. Our 8th grade team is amazing. So we have one teacher that splits into 7th grade as well too, which really helps because they know what's expected in 8th grade, what the student needs for 8th grade, and they can introduce that to 7th grade. So that's what I have so far.
So, thank you. I mean, as Ashley was talking and as Rosie was talking, I'm thinking about saying the gaps that the 6th graders have, plus some of the things that the 5th graders are struggling with. Just in my mind, sitting here, and I've done it before, a transition camp for your 5th graders.
Yes.
And while we're talking about maybe a transition camp for your 8th to 9th graders as well. I know a lot of times it's based on enrichment, but if we still have gaps that we can actually see consistently coming from 5th grade over to 6th grade, then, and I know we have the title funds to actually take forward. Let's think about our kids who are struggling the most in those areas, whatever academic area it may be, reading or math, giving them maybe a 2 2 week, transition camp to where literally, people never make it well. The first 2 hours is intensive intervention, and then the second 2 are the last hour, so maybe, something that's really exciting and fun for them in the same subject area.
And Dr. Scott, something for us to consider is that typically we say summer school, and summer school starts when everybody's getting pumped up for summer school, everybody gets to go to summer school, and then our kids have to stay at summer school that next week, and everybody else is at summer. Where if we would consider doing summer school in August and having that transition time in August, it would allow us that opportunity to pick up those foundational skills and really just something to consider in that, not giving them the summer school and then sending them off to summer break and then having them pick back up where they are, but really being unique about what that could look like if we did it in August, where you have that time to remediate, to catch up, to see where they're at, and then keep moving forward. So just a consideration.
I would think we probably need both.
Yes,
Because
that's
you need
so
summer
true.
school, because some students need it for the current year that they're in.
That's true.
But then having that transition prior to the year gets them all set and still fresh in their mind when they start 6th grade. Or when they start 9th.
So last year, we piloted that type of concept with our early college high school students. We called it Summer Bridge. Those 8th graders coming in as 9th grade early college high school. Ms. Brown did, I think, a week or several days with them at the beginning of the summer, and then she picked up and did some right before school started as well to prepare them for those dual classes, and it was very successful to have those 2 sessions. We've increased the pay significantly for summer school for staff to work, so if we can just get the folks that are willing to do it in 2 sessions, we can make that happen.
And that would be Ashley and I really working closer together with our 5th graders so we know which ones to target for that and what they actually truly need.
So, when you compare 6th grade and 7th grade, what am I seeing here? I'm looking, is it social? Is that why the numbers in 6th grade, when you look at it's a benchmark, so it's different from what Ashley was talking about with the CBA. So with the benchmark, I look at the difference between what's happening in 6th grade and what's happening in 6th and 7th grade. Why is there a difference? They're really knocking it out of the park in 7th grade.
True.
That's awesome.
And my voice is gone. With 6th grade, with the amount of new teachers they have, and having to make up with what some of the students come through or come to 6th grade with, that does attribute to why some of their scores are lower. 7th grade takes what 6th grade has done and builds on top of it. So they don't have as much new on that because 6th grade does work extremely hard at that. They're starting off with a little bit larger disadvantage than what 7th grade is starting off at. 7th grade, we have like 2.5 teachers for 7th grade. I've got 2 6th grade teachers. Their classes got a little bit larger as we went up throughout the year. So that's something we'll probably look at for the next year too. Based on the gaps that we have with transition is possibly adding maybe a 3rd grade math teacher, or sorry, 3rd grade. But you probably got like a 6th grade math class teacher to make those classes a little bit smaller because they do have more teaks that they have to cover that are new to them. So some of the things that 7th and 8th grade are doing, we are moving down to 6th grade. I have, they're using the technology, we're incorporating Ms. Boudry, which is our technology person for the district. So when we met today with them too, she is working with them and going to show them, one knows how to make the videos, she'll help the other one make the videos too. So not just for their own classrooms, but for tutorials. They keep it on Google Classroom, so if I ever forget how to do something as a kiddo, I can go back to Google Classroom and see that video. Okay, yeah, that's how to do it.
Good explanations. That's great, thanks.
So to answer your question, just a little bit more, if there are some non-academic aspects to a kid going from 5th grade, from elementary school to middle school, we all know that, going from 2 teachers to 7. There's no transition period that you're not really going by yourself in elementary school to now you're having to get the class in just a few minutes.
You're completely responsible for getting yourself from point A to point B, where before is, get your stuff, line up, let's go to the next teacher.
If you're going to a very new place, it's not only, this environment is much larger for you. It's just your physical transition that you're actually going through at 11 is it reality for kids in the age range? The answer is yes. That's why we have to have not only the academic pieces, but we have to have the wraparound pieces and engagement pieces, the counseling pieces, and just something to hold on to those kids so they're not getting lost in the shuffle of not being able to socialize, not even socializing appropriately, which could turn into something else. Just keeping a really good eye on that along with the academic pieces as well. And that's not just here. I mean, that's just traditionally transitioning from elementary to middle school.
This year we've had 2 programs that were presented, and with the crisis center, there was a list of all different presentations that we had. We're doing it every day, every Friday. So we didn't just select a few. We took them all because they all need that information. You need the parents' help to realize that it is important for them to participate because they have to opt in to do it. And we've had some that attended a couple and decided that we don't want to do that. If you don't want to do that, you do need to be able to provide them that information some other way.
And then, one thing that we're actually gonna have to come back and look at, because I've heard some really exciting things about communities in the schools, in some of the schools. We as a team, as an administrative team, we need to see if we're getting the best bang for our buck in that program and supporting our district initiatives on each campus. So that's a conversation we need to have soon.
I love it. That's a beautiful discussion on that. Thank you very much, Principal. Wasn't that awesome? Good job. Okay, there's a couple of other things that we wanted to look at as far as on our monitoring report. Let me stop this and go to the constraint. We have the superintendent constraints. That's in your packet that I gave you as well. And so we're going to look at, tonight, we're looking at 2.1, which is the superintendent shall not allow the ADA to drop below 91%. That was our baseline. And the data that we have coming up to January to this meeting is 93%. I believe that's a reflection of the first semester, right? Yeah. So that's tremendous. I can tell you from working with other districts around Region 3, 93% during COVID, with their Omicron, that's excellent.
What I really truly want to do is commend the principals for putting forward new initiatives on their campus. The bouncy house and all kinds of stuff just so kids can enjoy themselves. Just kind of a reward for coming to school, even tracking that some others have at other schools. They've been very intentional. They've been very intentional about ensuring that our kids are being celebrated for actually coming to school. And again, depending on where we are with this pandemic, kudos to the principals, the counselors, and their staff who are working so diligently on this.
I agree. It's amazing when I go to schools and they're celebrating all of these students. And the students are getting so excited and it makes them want to come more. So then they go home, they tell their parents, Mom, I didn't get to do it, but next time. So it's amazing the innovation and the ideas and the things that are making them, for sure.
I do like to add that for us, and I don't know if the lower grade levels, our kids did not quite come back as fast from their vacations. So our attendance did drop a little bit at the high school, and also our cases seem to be going up more than they did before. So we still have our initiatives, and we're going to keep working hard, but I did see a decline.
That's good. The other one that we were going to look at is 3.1. The superintendent shall not allow a month to go by without visiting each campus during a student activity or lunch period or lunchtime. And so the constraint progress measure was to be visible and involved on each campus 4 times each month. And so during this last month in November and December, we tracked that the superintendent was on each campus 2 times per week for November and December, so a total of 8 times per month.
Those are going to vary, especially by campus. To be honest with you, I've been on some campuses, probably a little bit more than others. Some were planned, and then some were just being responsive to the needs of the principals as well. I will tell you, having this constraint, not that it forces me to actually go, but I mean, just being able to go and see, and I know, some of the administrators are probably in here wishing you all didn't do this. Based on some of the.
I think this was bad.
Yeah, so principals, yeah. But no, being able to, just engage with the principals and assistant principals and even the students. Some are formal, some are informal, but looking at the instructional practices, now we're doing our instructional rounds, we're walking with the administrators and their leadership teams just to kind of calibrate what we're actually seeing and then how we can offer additional support to the school. So this constraint, it's a good one. Honestly, I had a constraint like this as my first year as a building principal, and it builds a different level of capacity. But I love the instructional rounds though. One thing about going to the lower school that became a problem after Trustee Westmoreland made me deliver candy canes. Now when the kids see me, they believe that I'm going to deliver candy canes. And I'm like, no, that was for Christmas. We were not delivering candy.
That's just what you think, Dr. I'll steady supply of candy canes.
I literally had to deliver candy the first or second week we got back to the Cherry. So they just happened to have some in our office, so we started to deliver candy.
So y'all are gonna have to consider a budget amendment. Okay, well, very good. We're making progress in all these areas. That's awesome. So I thought we could just wait on the board evaluation to just the last item. But just in looking at the board operating procedures and reminders, I got on your website. I'm not sure I was looking at the most current board operating procedures. I think it says on your website 13, 14.
Yeah, those aren't current.
Those are current?
They're not, we updated them sometime in the fall.
Well, the information that's in those board operating procedures was very good as far as with superintendent evaluation. And that was one of the things I was going to talk to you all about tonight, just going ahead, because I know it's coming up next week, right? On the 24th. And so I have in your packet tonight some just recommendations, and they're very close to what you already have in the board operating procedures. And that is to, let me get a hold of those recommendations here. One thing is for you guys to take home a form that you all agreed on tonight, and then bring it back filled out individually. But you have to do that confidentially. You don't share that with your spouse. You don't leave it laying out where your kids would see it. It's something you do. You don't call another board member and get together and do it together. It's your own personal evaluation as superintendent on the form you all agree on. Now, I know Linda sent you a copy of the form you used in the past, and I looked at that. And the form that I put in this packet right here is basically the same thing, but it's updated and I think it's better, and so does Dr. Scott. What this does is it gives you, instead of 1 to 3, to rate the superintendent between 1 and 3, it gives you between 1 and 10, which is really much better. We've taken some of the pages out of it and made it a little bit shorter as far as just the space. And it does evaluate him in all the areas of his job performance. And this is basically a TASB form, just like the one you were using, that has just been amended and updated and made better. Now, attached to this, we'll need to have some copy of a performance domain. You can either use the Commissioner's approved performance domain, or you can use the TAPR report, or just whatever you all agree on. And I'm sure Dr. Scott will make sure that you get a copy of that. Another TASB procedure that I really like, that is a part of what I'm recommending to you, is to give Dr. Scott an opportunity next Monday when we meet to do kind of what I call a statement of the district address. Basically, to just tell you all the things that he feels like are going well in the district, and then the things that he feels like are most in need of improvement. and to provide a written copy of his notes to you before he starts to speak, so that you can listen, take notes, and maybe even ask questions. And then when you go into deliberation and you fill out the joint form, which is when you all agree on, where you compile your individual evaluations of him, you've got that document there to refer to as well, so that you know from his perspective that he works here day in and day out, and he'll probably use the principals and the curriculum director and the business manager to help him put that together. That state of the district address. That's what I always did as a superintendent. We got onto this process when we went to a TASB workshop on superintendent evaluation, and all these things I'm describing to you, and then these recommendations came from that. And it's amazing when I read your operating procedures how closely linked this recommendation is to that. So at that same time, next week, he would provide you a salary survey that would show similar districts, size-wise, numbers of students, what superintendents in those districts make, so that you can make a decision about salary, and then you can also talk about contract. Because when you come out and you meet with them, you need to explain to them what his salary is going to be and what his contract's going to be, and contract extension. And so those items are handled at the same time you do the evaluation. You deliver that to him, and then you let him look at it, and then ask questions. And then between then and the next regular board meeting, you give him an opportunity to put together an action plan, which is basically a response to the gaps you see in the performance in the district. Because you're going to identify things you think he's doing great in, and things that you want him to improve in. That's what the evaluation is for, right? And that's what he wants. He doesn't want just like a glowing report that just is just a flowery thing. I never liked that. And I had 3 farmers on my board, so I never got that. I can tell you, it was always very raw, and they didn't have any trouble telling me what they wanted me to do. And I know I appreciate that actually. After I got over the pain of it, So it's a good process. Then he develops an action plan. It may have 3 to 5 things in it that you identify you wanted to work on, and he would put that together and give it to you before the next board meeting, when you would actually consider it and approve it. Then, now think about next year. Next year, you've got his action plan with his goals that he's put out, that you've developed. And you also have last year's evaluation that you can compare, along with the student growth that you're going to be looking at. Because if you do, hopefully you're doing LSG again next year, and now that student performance domain that you're going to use will come right out of LSG. And you'll have an LSG component to that for your student performance domain, which will be outstanding. So I just wanted to cover those things with you. It's all kind of based in your operating procedures. Another thing, and I know that your operating procedures have changed a little bit, but I bet you this part hasn't changed, and that is how to handle complaints. And that was something in the last evaluation that we did. And it's common, especially when you're new on board, to people are going to go and they're going to complain to you. And what I always tell when I'm doing new board member training is you should always listen with empathy. Listen with empathy. And then refer them to the complaint procedure that's in the board policy book. Refer them to the closest place to the problem to get a resolution. And then when you finish that conversation, you immediately call the superintendent. Let him know. Because that's his job, to handle the complaints. And then that way, it's all following that chain of command in the proper way. And so that's the way it's supposed to be done. And what's difficult is when it's difficult for you as a board member to have a life outside of here, because when you go to the grocery store, I was talking to a principal today. She said she used to go to the grocery store at 11 o'clock at night, so she didn't have to. She just had to have a little time away from her job, right? She would get confronted in the grocery store with everything. So we understand the life that you have, and we appreciate what you do. Just a little reminder about those operating procedures. And that's coming from your coach. So that's what you hired me to do. Looking at the talking points, it looks like you guys, have you had any opportunities to get broad community ownership with your LSG goals? in the last month or so. It may be something that we'll discuss in our leadership team meeting, maybe opportunities that would come up for you guys to come and talk to the community a little bit about. I heard one, Morris Lyons was telling me today, he's my new boss at the Region Center, that in Sweetwater, what they did is they invited like the police department, the sheriff's department, the city administration to come in, and they actually did like a mini LSG workshop for all of those groups that wanted to participate in it. And it let those officials in town know about what's going on in the school district with those. So there's just some suggestions like that we can talk about and consider. So that leads us to our board evaluations. Remember, you have to, we did one in November, I think, and then we come right back this month and do it again. Normally it's every 3 months, but we have to do it within 45 days of the superintendent's evaluation, and since you're evaluating him next Monday night, this seemed like a good time to go ahead and take care of it. So I've got a copy of the board evaluation in your packet, and what we'll do is we'll just start right out there in number 1, which is Vision Goals 1. The board has adopted student outcome goals, and so it, when we look at that, where do you think you land on this first one?
I think we're right where we were last time.
That was,
Well, that means total.
I can't say I've committed
yet, so I can't.
Before I forget, I'm glad you mentioned that. In your packet, I've got a copy of the quarterly report, and if somebody could take one, and let me just do this, just hand you one, Jill, and I'm going to have you pass it around. And what we need to do tonight is we need to approve that, and I'm going to send it to TPA. I'm doing it for all the districts that I work with. It's a quarterly report. We do it, every 3 months. And it's not, TDA is not keeping track of you, keeping track of them. So this is a program that's overseen by the folks at TDA, and that's just a quarterly report that I filed.
So we're just signing in this box?
Yeah, you
on
just
this
sign
line?
that box, and then at the end of the meeting, you'll vote to approve it, to approve all the items in the LSG part of the agenda. And so, yeah, so going forward, we need to.
So you don't want all comments because every month.
No, we're gonna use that one form, Mrs. Robinson, and we'll pass it around, and everybody can sign that one form in the box. Thank you for asking. Okay, so when we go on with vision and goals 1, the board has adopted student outcome goals. James said he feels like we're at 12. What is keeping us from master's focus?
Well, I haven't memorized it all, or committed it to memory, so I'm keeping it. I don't know if anybody else, everybody else has. They have?
You got it memorized, right?
What's goal 3?
Well, you know what? After we do this a few months, you probably will just about have it memorized. You can hear all this data. So is everybody in agreement that we're at 12 on goals 1? Okay, so moving on then to the vision and goals 2, the board has adopted goal progress measures aligned to each student outcome goal. So where do you think you land there?
Well,
That's it, we're still at 12 because we haven't really done anything
Yeah.
for community ownership.
Yeah, I think that too. Now, I want to direct your attention to preparing to focus, the last bullet point there. And it says the status of each adopted GPM is able to be updated multiple times during each school year. Now, what Estella presented to you tonight, and she showed you why the data baseline in your GPMs for 3.1, 2, and 3 is different, and it's because of the way the data is accumulated That's just being really transparent with you and honest about it. And so what we would like to do is, I talked to Mrs. Moy, we'd like to come back and clean that up next time and adjust that GPM to make it accurate to the goal, I mean, to the data that she has, if you're okay with that. And you can approve that in one vote at the end. So going on to the next item, which is Vision and Goals 3. Board has adopted constraints. You have those, you have constraints. Where do you think you land with this one?
None of them means focus again.
Does everybody agree with that?
Vision
Vision and Goals 3. Page 6. Well, do we have, we do have a theory of action.
But we're still
We don't
missing
have
that
community ownership.
Yeah, that last one there, Ms. Robinson, the collaboration, community ownership. Yeah.
If we get that community stand, we'll get to knock a couple of those out.
I'm telling you, get that going, you're gonna be there. And this could be different. You do it one time, and that's good for that quarter. But in the next quarter, anything that's missing is gonna ding you, right? So it's how are you doing now? It's not how you did in the past. That's what we're looking at right now. Okay, so 9 is what we agreed on, right? Let's go on to the next one. It's Vision Goals 4. The board has adopted superintendent constraint progress measures, CPMs, and definitely have those. What's that, James?
We get that community member ownership piece, there's about 3 or 4 of these that we can move up on.
I'm telling you, real quick. Yeah.
I've tried to set before.
And your goal is to get to, in the last quarter, we scored 52. The goal is to get to 60 and stay there. And so once we hit 60 and we stay there, I'm going to be submitting this every quarter, and you're going to get to be on the leaderboard. They actually have a section in TEA's website, the LSG leaderboard, so that you can go and look on their website. You can see which districts are doing it, what their scores are. And, there's about 90 to 100 districts in the state of Texas that are involved in LSG right now, so out of a little over 1,000. So that's a pretty good number. So where do we land on this one? We're looking at
Still, I think we're
still 4? Okay. And then we go to progress and accountability 1. The board invests at least half of its time in improving student outcomes.
So you told us our last month, but how do we do for the whole quarter?
You were at, in the last quarter, you were at 38%. And so last month, you were at 46%. And I added the three months I was here, so you were like at 38% of your reading time. So that was for the quarter.
So we're almost.
And then you had 46% last month. So, really, we're not meeting that. We're not at 50%.
But this starts the new quarter, right? Are we going January, February, March?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably let's look at November, December, January as being a quarter. Because we really had our workshop, didn't we have it like in September, first part of September? And then we didn't really get rolling until, the first couple of months. This is based on this first couple of months.
September. It was Labor Day weekend that we had at LSU.
Yeah, probably so, yeah. Well, it's really December and January, and then we won't have another one of these until April.
So 12 again.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at 12 because you definitely are above 25%, but you're not at 50%.
I wouldn't get anything here.
Well,
where we're at.
Progress and accountability 2, this is the one where we were at 0 last time.
We did ourselves, we couldn't even get off the board because it was our first self-evaluation. Now we're on our
That's
second.
correct.
And we have performed a superintendent evaluation within 15 months.
Okay, so what about the superintendent's implementation plan? To make progress towards the student outcome goals and approve the superintendent's implementation plan unless required by law. So I think we have that with LSG.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And not voted to approve?
Voted to approve those measures. Is that what it's referring to?
Not voted to approve.
no, I'm gonna have to ask a question about that.
We're gonna take a break.
I'm not sure I fully understand that one.
Okay, we perform self-evaluations using this instrument.
Yeah.
Perform a self-evaluation no more than 45 days prior to the most recent. We're gonna take credit for doing it today.
Yeah, I think we can, because we're doing that. We're doing it intentionally because the superintendent's evaluation is next week.
Evaluates the superintendent in part on the results and progress towards the student outcome goals and constraints using information.
Is that will give us 45 days?
Okay, I'm sorry?
Is that going to give us 45 days?
We'll be doing it in 7 days.
Yeah, you'll be doing it in 7 days from now. Yeah, so you're good, you're within that 45 days. But when you get to 4, notice that first bullet. The board receives at least annually a report of the average cost of staff time spent on governance using a staff use tracker. What that means is that if you start getting, if Dr. Scott starts getting a lot of requests from the board on facts, figures, items, and then he's got the research and start providing information to each of you as a result of those kinds of inquiries, he needs to start keeping track of those. And so that's that staff use tracker that we're talking about. But we haven't gotten to the point where you can really take credit for that because we haven't done it yet. So we're still in that first year where we're collecting data. And is that something that did you get a lot, Dr. Scott? Did you get a lot of requests from the board for information, for statistics, for data during the month, during?
Only the board president.
Only the-
I'm joking, it's a joke. It's a joke.
I mean, I haven't heard you say that. I haven't heard you say that you get it. I mean, some of them do, man, you wouldn't believe it. I had a board at one point that, man, it was like, we spent a lot of our time in the office just answering, sending them that.
Mr. Tony, if you don't mind, can I say something?
Well,
Or no, yes or no? It's
you
make it flat.
can't right now, but I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting.
No, I don't need to talk to you at all. I wanted to ask the principal over there about getting our kids, the African-American kids, back on track. I have something called Market Day, but I'm willing to change that. Base CDI is fighting through the COVID. So everybody's education can be at the same level.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And yeah, it's just a point of order in the meeting, in this meeting, that we can't inject that right now. Please talk to her after the meeting, or talk to Dr. Scott about it, because that's a great idea.
I'll talk to James.
Okay, that's good. Very good. All right, and pardon me for not being entertaining right now, but I can't at the point of order, so.
Whatever you need to do.
Okay, that's what we have to do, so. Looking at progress and accountability 2, then we can't get a 4, but we could get a 2. So are we at 2? We're okay. And systems and processes, last time you got a 0. In systems and processes, the board operates in a way that allows the superintendent to accomplish the vision.
Yeah, we hadn't even started monitoring them yet.
Right.
So we couldn't get credit for anything.
Okay, so
now I think.
have you been receiving your materials at least 30 calendar days in advance of the board authorized meeting? You've gotten all your documents, not just the board agenda, but the documents as well?
Yeah,
It's been usually about somewhere right around the week.
Well, we're shooting for 7 days.
No.
And I think I think we're landing
She busses at me.
right in that.
Yeah.
Well, she pushes me too. She did, so I know she pushes Dr. Scott too with that, so that's good. And then when we get to preparing to focus, look at what these items are.
Yeah, this is what kicked us out. We had
So you're getting that now
Yeah.
in the preparing to focus. So I don't think you pulled, there was just one item pulled tonight, and normally y'all do really, even one item is fine, that's understandable. Maybe more sometimes, but no more than 75%.
Is that more than 3/4 of the consent and eligible items, or more than 3/4 of the total agenda?
No, that's the consent eligible agenda items were placed on the consent agenda, and more than 75% of the items were voted on using the consent.
Oh.
So,
We put them all on there, we start pulling half of them off, and we're just.
yeah, then
seeing
you're,
the
then you're
purpose.
some, but
Yeah.
the idea is to try to get more onto your consent agenda.
Sure.
So that you can have discussions like we had here at the last meeting. Start to look at the data with the students.
This, it seems like it's saying everything that's voted on in the meeting, 75% of that, using a consent agenda. That's how I read it.
Well, it's consent eligible items, so it's like, you know, the stuff y'all handled outside of the consent agenda tonight, you couldn't very well put that in consent.
Right.
Because you're talking to you know, an engineer, and there's dialogues.
Couldn't we have done this order of the annual election in the consent agenda item? There's no, we had to order the election.
Yeah, you probably could have.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's something that we're talking about in our leadership meetings a little bit, you know, how we can push the meetings to be more focused on student outcomes. And we'll continue to look at that month in, month out. But some of these things that you're dealing with are pretty important to the community, so it's understandable.
Oh, we got it.
Okay, the adopted monitoring calendar has not been modified during the past quarter, which, you know, we have not. Needs focus, board authorized public meetings in the last quarter did not exceed 4 meetings a month. There are 5 of the topics were reviewing existing local policies.
We're at 3 hours and 45 minutes tonight.
So where are we here, needs focus?
Yeah, I don't think we've got
We're-
much focus.
I don't think we're at meets, I think we're approaching this.
Do you think you're approaching? And why, what keeps us from being needs?
Well, we're at a 4-hour meet right now. We're
Our
not
last
getting an average 3.
I think we are at needs. I don't think we're approaching. Because if we go back to any of it, because we're just starting this.
Well, it is, last month we had 100 meeting and it's,
That's 3 hours.
oh wait, was it that?
It was,
I think it was 100.
But you said we could have put
it was 182 minutes last
It says
time.
here all consent on the bottom, but it's like consent agenda, we didn't do that
Yeah,
on
So-
approaches.
so we're probably prepared to focus.
I mean, not that I want less points.
No, we gotta be
I think
honest
it's-
about it.
Thanks, Trent.
No, it's good to be honest about it.
Yeah.
What was the reason they said you turned it
They were
down?
saying that we could have put the, order of election on the consent agenda, but we didn't do that.
Oh,
And that's better.
Yeah, so that's a question that just needs to be looked at every agenda, James. So when you get sent that agenda, you review it, and you ask yourself, can any of this go on the consent?
Yeah.
And if it can, then
Yeah.
you push it over. So then we're looking at 1 on this one?
Yes.
Okay. That's better than last time, right?
That's right.
Advocacy and engagement. I think it's probably 0. Yeah. Because you haven't arranged any community engagement activities during the previous 12 months, other than public comments. And then synergy and teamwork is the next one. And that is, the board works collaboratively and with the superintendent to lead toward the vision.
What kept us from getting the focus? Was it 80% attendance? Or board operating procedure?
I think it was board operating procedures last time. We did score 3 last time. close to the board operating procedures, that's what it was. So, where are we this time?
We're not counting the wit against us, right? I mean,
No.
resign.
And we're talking right now about, December, January.
Yeah, so we've been 6 out of 6 at the last meetings, so attendance is there. I don't know of anybody not adhering to a board operating procedure.
In the last 2 months, Dr. Scott, are you aware of anything like that?
There you go.
I don't think so.
Yes, it's the self. Telling yourself. Every member is completed training, rather than the superintendent led completion of Lone Star government tasks. I don't know what that means. Is that last one?
In other words, it's not just the superintendent that's leading out in Lone Star government's tasks. So some of these things that involve broad community ownership will be led by you guys. So that's kind of what that's talking about.
I think we're still at 3. We're missing the community piece.
So where do you think we land on this one?
Approaches.
Approaches, 3?
So why did you say they still need one?
Because the comment that he made is, it says rather than the superintendent, that last one is for us owning it in the community, and we have not held any type of community type event, not event, but
Yeah.
haven't really promoted it in the community. I mean, I talked one-off with people, but we haven't had a place to really promote what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Okay, so let me add that up. That's
55.
Yeah, 55, that's getting close. That's improvement, it's 3 more than last time. So
We need,
if we can get our meeting time focused on student outcome goals and plan some collaboration with the community that's effective, that would be awesome. And, so very good, so let me make sure cover the issue.
oh yeah.
We read that in, we've all of it.
Are we all in?
We need to approve that one now or at the end?
This is the one we're gonna approve right now.
But
So, oh yeah.
we
that-
also need to approve what
Yeah,
we're
you're
using
gonna,
for
you're
this.
gonna approve that under one cover, I would think.
Okay.
If you approve everything we presented to you in the LSG report, monitoring
Everybody
report.
good?
Do you like the superintendent evaluation form that we presented?
I'd like it better than.
I like it better, I like the 1 to 10 better.
Okay, yeah, gives them a little bit more clarity.
And everybody knows what our actions are, right?
The expectation is we come on Monday with it filled out, and then what were you saying we also needed attached to it?
We'll need to kind of agree, Dr. Scott, what student performance domain would you like to use for this?
Let me get back. Let me look at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can either be the commissioner's approved form, or you can use the TECA report. I started using the TECA report at the end because all the information that goes in the commissioner's approved form is out of the TECA report. So it's like, why am I gonna task a curriculum director with a 4-hour job to take all the information and transfer it in? When if you guys agree that the TECA report's good, put a copy of it on there, and that's part of what you're gonna use in the evaluation.
So, Tony, just to be clear.
Yes.
This January workshop on the 24th, that we're doing on the 24th, that we have on the recommended superintendent's evaluation.
Yes, that's what, I believe that's what y'all have scheduled, right? Is a board meeting on the 24th?
So all of this is gonna be covered next week.
Well, y'all are gonna come together and do the evaluation of Dr. Scott next week, it'll all be a closed session. And you'll come with that filled out on your own, just independently of what, your own personal evaluation of Dr. Scott. Each board member will do that and bring it together, and then somebody will be the scribe, and you'll compile all of your information into one, and you'll have one cumulative evaluation. I think that's everything I had on the agenda to cover. got a copy that I can send to EPA. Thank you very much for having me out here.
Thank
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed it. Very much.
Okay, so then we just need a motion to approve everything that was recommended in the LSG report.
Make a motion to approve everything that was recommended in the LSU report.
Motion been made by trustee Westmoreland to approve everything that was recommended in the LSG report. Is there a secondary motion? Motion been seconded by trustee Tim. Any further discussion on this? Any questions for Tony or things on LSG? None, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Man, we lost everybody. Thank you. Not everybody. Item 7, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
real quick?
Absolutely.
So going back to the pool, the 16th Street pool, I think we need a clarification point from the city, is if we don't want to take that pool, what are they going to do with it? Are they closing the doors and then come back and have that discussion? Because I don't think we can make a full decision on it to then not know, if we say, no, we don't want it, then they say, well, we're closing it and y'all no longer can have a place to sleep. So I think in order to make an educated decision on that, we need to ask the question of the city manager or whoever that is.
Yeah.
What is, if we say no, what happens on y'all's end?
We say no to what?
If we say no to acquiring the 16th Street pool, because we didn't make a decision tonight.
Right.
Correct.
And we'll put it on a future agenda item. We don't have a choice not to take something that's ours. They're just gonna stop operating it and it's gonna go to.
Well, that's my question, is what are they doing with it?
Yep.
And so I think it's a conversation that maybe we have with the city manager, is saying, if we don't want to acquire the 16th Street pool, is there an option if y'all still owning it and operating it and us paying you?
I don't think so, but we'll put it on the next regular meeting.
So February.
Motion been made by trustee Tim to adjourn. Is there a second? Motion been trusted by trustee Robinson. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Passes 6-0. We'll see you next week.
Enjoy your day tonight.
Thank you.
Take care.